Okay. Awesome. We are starting. Thank you everybody for being patient and joining us to celebrate the release of Jimmy's book. We'll talk about it a little bit later and talk about him a little later and everybody else a little later. But this is what it looks like. There's a sick ass photo on the back. So we're here at the Community Arts Workspace. My name is Matthew. I run Nervous Ghost Press. We're a 501c3 nonprofit arts advocacy organization, and we're dedicated to you and the arts and the community, always and always and always. So I want to have more events because to set up for this event, if you're watching last week, I mentioned that I had to remember how to use all the machines, and I did remember, and then I broke it, and then I remembered how to get it going again. So that was cool. But the more events, the more things I get to break, and then the more things I get to fix and learn how to use, which is good for me. We have a couple people joining us in person, some online, which is great. I think the virtual aspect and why I like doing these is that we can get people from wherever, from whenever, and it really opens up our audience, and it opens up who we can have here with us. I have so many windows open. So we have an art gallery here in this space. The next one will be photographs, and then after that, I'm trying to get one of my tattoo guy friends to do his stuff. But I mean, you know how it is. He wants to put it on skin and not on walls. But I'm like, put the skin on the wall. No, I'm just kidding. It's kind of never mind. Bad joke. But we have Arts Night. Our next Arts Night is on January 31st. I'll mention it a little later. But to stay on top of everything, stay connected with us. It's up on your screen now on all of our social media accounts. I'm learning how to use it. I'm not the best. You could ask Jimmy. I reply as often as I can, and then I forget, and then I have to switch to the other account, and then I forget to go back to the other one, and 2 is too many. But join us. I only send a couple emails every other couple months. It's not too much. Our arts nights are great. You can come here and paint, make music. If anyone out there knows how to tune drums, you can come tune the drums, and then you can use our cool oven and water pot and make hot chocolate and whatever else you want. It's pretty sick. All right, let's see. Hold on 1 second. I just updated, and this is just because it's on my brain. I spent all week. So I used to use a tripod, and it was like a tripod from like the 80s, and the little screw thing on top didn't fit any camera that I had because I just have a bunch of streaming cameras and webcams. That's what I use out here. So I rigged it with, if you have ever painted a house and you take off the plates for the outlets, I got 2 of those that were also old and like yellow because everything back in the 70s was yellow for whatever reason. And I wrapped it in duct tape and then used zip ties and zip tied the cameras to it. And it was awesome and it worked, but it took up too much space. So I built this whole thing, and it just looks, if you need a reason to be here in person, I think that's it. Because it's pretty awesome. But anyways, I don't get to look at it because I'm staring at my camera on the computer, but I'm jealous of everybody that gets to use the really cool camera system that I made. We are here for the community always, no matter what. The space is free. Just let me know if you want to use it. Events like this are free. Come by. We have a limit on how many people can be here based on, fire code and safety, and also based on my desk. There was a desk in here, and it's a really big desk. But it's a really good desk. It has a drawer full of whiskey. And so host events. I want to have more reading events, more events like this where we celebrate the release of a book for an author and have some local authors and writers and artists join. I think these are very, very fantastic and events that grow the community, which is what we need. So email me. Let's make it happen. I don't care who you are. Just do it. It's awesome. It's fun. Bring your friends. Make them my friends. There are a lot of people in here that I didn't know before, but now I do. And we have become close, even though I haven't seen her in like a long time. Nah, I'm just kidding. But the community is why we're here. So I'm going to get us started. I have 3 poems that I'm going to read. Some are long. Well, I've been writing long poems lately, so you're going to have to deal with it. But after I'm done, we're going to get into the real show. I got my ghost cut back. I think all these were written last year, which is kind of cool. I have a habit, and everybody should. This is just the Professor Matt. Always date your stuff. Because then you can look back and go, where was I in 2024? And you're like, ugh. I remember. This one is called Whiskey Tastes Better in the Rain. We say rise, but we can't even stand up. Can't even fuck what we thought was a quick fuck. What we thought would be simple turned out to be fool's gold, not shiny enough, but we still do what we're told. We still do what they say, what they think, what they made, while our hands are blistered and bloodied. It's not safe. These spaces with posters and slogans and flowers, and we think that we wield an ounce of their powers. And we think that we have a voice in these matters. Our hubris is worse. There's no wax. It's just cowards. So what happens next? When we cash our fat checks and roll in the gold coins and suck on their necks while they push us and pull us and spit in our mouths, yet somehow we still think that this is our house. How fucking stupid. Are you serious? Is your brain made of mud and of the blood of our ancestors tainted with love? Because they love you. I know you know it. They're ghosts. Don't haunt. They provide every minute and second and hour of our lives, and the dirt that you walk on, the soil in your toes, is the same shit that's buried them up to their nose. The same shit they wrapped over again around their necks. It's not movies. You can't close your eyes when there's sex. When there's death, it just happens. You think you're special or cool. You ain't shit. It's not 96 and you went in school. And you're not the thing that you thought you should be in your mind when the fear was all you could see. It's all plastic and not real. There ain't nothing here. There's only one thing to quiet the fear, but the doctors. Fuck the doctors. Making noise and won't stop, but there's too many bodies unburied that rot. There's too many bodies that never got up. That never got up and that never got up. But still hopeful. You prayed to the thing that they praised, and the saints held their chests and hoped it would save all the lost ones with bullet holes and splattered out brains and organs burned and damaged from inhaling the cause, from consuming the lies, and they'll never stop. They'll never win. It's not a game made for us. Yet too many are blinded and brainwashed by touch, by flashes of pennies and stupid fucking titles. It's not like it was. We won't survive in the wild. You're domesticated, thinking you have strength when you don't. It's the ones that we lost that still haunt this home. It's the ones that we lost that will never let go. It's their bones and their blood and their laughter and smiles. It's their bones and their blood and their heartache and trials remembered through bladed up bodies and streets while we think we're the heroes fulfilling their dreams. We ain't it. It ain't us. It's not about me. It's not about you, but maybe soon we could be. We're the hope in the screams moving silently still. Pour another one. There are things inside I need killed. And this is the next one. My friend Ian doesn't like when I rhyme stuff, but I've been rhyming. I don't know. Sometimes it's just, I used to rhyme a lot, almost exclusively, and then I stopped rhyming. And then I met Ian, and I'm like, oh, buddy. This poem is called Say the Hateful. Keep thinking about getting old and gray, ignoring the elderly, suffocating and floating away peacefully and in pain, hoping that their children would have stronger and much better days. It's nothing but a pipe dream to wish and hope they'd stay. It's something that the hateful say that burrows deep inside your heart, and mind and brain and festers in the dark and finds your nightmares waiting patiently to rip your dreams apart. They always say do it, no one stops them. It's a vile act of pride, but not in love or even lust, just to keep them all in line. Create a world where laughs are beaten out of little children's smiles with closed fists and side-eye glances celebrating pedophiles and the fathers and what the fuck and where you been. You've seen these fuckers after school. These little asshole kids, no wonder no one wants them. Start draining all the pools. But it's a lie. It's been a lie. Only takes a thought or two. It's me, 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 me. Well, how about you? But we know it's true. We see it. We acknowledge what they've done to us. They stop our hearts from beating, decoagulate our blood in the name of love. Stay broken. Say stupid, you stupid fucking bitch. You can't sit at my table, eat my food. Let's eat the rich. Yeah, it's mine. Don't mind mine. You want some, there's a door. Get us drunk on hopes and wishes. What the fuck, where is the floor? And all these ladders climbing causes calluses on limbs and inside eyelids where the nightmares are burned against the skin, where the shame and fear and sadness creep so quietly behind. What did we really think would happen? Standing up, what would we find? What have we done? Ancestral strength, enough of that old myth. My strength is right here, right now. You and I are basked in it. Let it seep into your blood, through your bones, and by your skin, what they can't take away, what they tried to, but never did. Got to go forward, march in line, step by step, and hand in hand. You ain't me and I ain't you, and that's the best trait we'll ever have. Conventions say to not make waves and keep your mouths wired shut. Don't have ideas, but if you do, don't share them. That's a must. Theft is easy when you look the same. Could just walk in and share no blame. It's easy, Jesus Christ it is, and scary. Stay away. Move forward. Do the same thing. Don't stray too far. Don't learn to swim or breathe without machines massaging your lungs and tongues and lips. Who are you if not a product of the assassins and the damned? You're one of us. Take care of us. The hateful speak in song and dance. March, my little puppet, step by step, one by one. No dialogue. We can't have that. Keep us blind and deaf and dumb. Learn your own way, not by scripts. Life ain't a paint by number tune. Sometimes if you play the record backwards, you'll hear, I love you. Imagine that. Doing something outside the norm. What the fuck is an other anyway? Y'all must be bored. All right, last one I promise, and then we'll have the real people show up. If you have a cool or ghost mug, I accept donations of mugs. Maybe that's why I can't afford anything, Brenda. This poem is called The Ones That Never Carried. It's some shit, ain't it? Fred said it. Other people's spacing, other people's families, other people's happiness. Well, at what point is othering enough? Is there something other than the one thing that ain't it? That isn't what the dream was, what the pain was for, the dying, the scars, and the everlasting enduring of heinous acts of contrition. Is it too late? Is it enough? Now yet or finally? When do these tides turn, or as it reaches your fragile toes, evaporated into dust like the bones of those who never carried me, who never witnessed what their deaths meant and what their suffering was for? It's some shit, ain't it? Watching whores on TV sell their souls for pennies while cute little babies are starving, fucking sucking teat after 45 years later, still searching for a drop of milk instead of standing up and fighting. Nah, just stand there with your mouth open while wondering why life ain't what it's supposed to be. What they promised and why they sold what they sold. It isn't about buyer's remorse. When the con men did the selling, did the building, did the teaching. You all think these fuckers are the smartest in the room. They ain't even the smartest at home. But they want to walk around on stilts created by failure because it's ours, isn't it? Success is yours, and fucking up drags us all down. Represent us in a way that sounds nice on paper. Prim and proper ain't shit, is it? When the blood congeals in kids' throats, it's not like the movies. They don't wake up. The only last grasp of air is yours. When your heart hurts, when your dreams burn, when your guts turn inside out and backwards, trying to hold down what you keep expelling, the body is miraculous in death. And in mourning, cut the legs off the elders, make them crawl like how they made us live in the shit they created. I had to suffer, so now you do too. Well, fuck you. It's our turn to rise up. The revolution isn't yours, it's mine. And you ain't seen nothing yet talking about legacies. These kids can't even fucking read. And you stand like you did something, harping on emotions and what don't mean a damn thing. What harms most is cuddling with monsters and kissing future demons. It's no wonder we see what we see when we give people a voice. You want to give them one? Then put the fucking mic down and step off the stage. Go home and let the others do the talking and planning. Because guess what? You ain't it. And you haven't been in generations. But it all still revolves around you. And well, that's just some shit, ain't it? I got my notes here on paper. It's kind of funny. Just, this is my famous Matthew banter. So in classes, I'm like the only student without a computer, just because I refuse to use it in class, because I need a pen and paper, because I'm old enough to be someone's dad. Right, Adam? Yep. But anyways, paper's what it's all about. All right, so let's see. Oh, everybody's here. Awesome. I don't know why. Jimmy, I'm so used to not everyone being here at the time that I'm like, oh, man, no. Oh, but everybody's here. So what I'm going to do, and I didn't talk about this with everybody yet, but normally I try to say something between everyone, but I think today I'm going to do what I did last week, and I might just ask you a question, just one question each person, And then at the end, if everybody wants to, we could have like a cool Q&A discussion with everyone if you're open to that. So just let me know. But all right, introducing the first reader, the first real reader, and everybody, because I don't know you, share a little bit about who you are, where people can find your stuff. If I hear it correctly, I'll type it in. Otherwise, tell me and I'll write it somehow. But who you are, where you're from, any cool things about yourselves. It's about you until it's about Jimmy. Then it's like screw you. No one cares who you are anyway. So our first speaker today is Michaela.
Hello. Is it working or no? Okay, cool. I don't know. Jimmy invited me. That was a cool thing. I was like, and met through Jose. I hope you're watching, Jose, and happy to read with you again. So yeah, I don't know. Just knowing really cool people has been really cool to me. And also from the Inland Empire, big wave. Oh, you did? Okay, sweet. Awesome. From the Inland Empire, write poems. That's about it. Fill all the fills. Anyway, it started off with a rhyming one because you rhymed. And so I was like, I'll rhyme with this one. It's called Pith of My Flesh. Ginger slices seep, 3 gin and tonics deep. There's a burning chance I'd reached beneath the bone. The lime drips, rhymes in vain. And as always, I find all ways to be lost just the same. So that's that one. I'm just going to start read stuff. This one's called Steinbeck because I love Steinbeck. I ran into Steinbeck at my local library. He asked me to sit down next to him and asked me how my writing is going. And I tell him it is like finding a mouse in my pocket, soft and fragile. Healing. My mom no longer says this is the year of healing every year. I wonder if she's given up. Radical acceptance, she tells me. I have to radically accept the way things are, sometimes the way things gotta be. I want to hold all her losses of great expectations like a newborn baby. I want to wrap it in a cloth that bundles it all together. I want to hold it close to my chest and rock it till it sleeps. Rock it until she can find some sense of ease. This one's called Hands. I love how Shakespeare, in the spirit of Juliet, says how placing hands together is like kissing. 2 palms like 2 lips sounding like a bouquet of colored tulips. Tulips symbolize rebirth. Once planted, the hardy bulbs come back every year. This year, they come back every month, and they died each time you left when you promised you wouldn't again. This one's called Samaj. He was a coworker. After he clocks out and before he fully goes into the dressing room, he asks me, hey, you know Romeo and Juliet? I was sitting in the break room that wasn't at all a break room, trying to eat my lunch in my 10-minute break. I tell him, yeah. He goes into the dressing room to change from his dirty whites into his street clothes. Coming back out, he says, yeah, they deserve to die. Yeah. I wrote my Shakespeare essay based off of that. It's funny. This one's called Heart. My dad, while drunk, tells me he has a bicuspid aortic valve. My heart murmurs, he says. What do you mean? I murmur back, sipping my drink. There are only 2 flaps, he says to me. 2 flaps. There should be 3. I'm just going to throw them. All right. This one's called Poems Are Not For Everyone. And this is when I was working with K through 8, 8th grade. They take each line like a 5-year-old, distracted with Play-Doh in their hands, mushing the 36-pack case of colors into a brown. An adult will look down and call it a pile of shit. But a poet listens to the 5-year-old and agrees it is a bear and roar together like one. My father's poem. 2 fistful of crack-knuckle dreams sit in front of me on the kitchen island of the house you built for me. I'm halfway through my life and I still don't know what I'm doing. You were making salsa that day. You know, mi abuelo put nothing but hot salsa in his tortillas and just eat them like that. The stove was hot. You wanted more from me than just my words. Everything I have, I've worked for. Remember that, Mija. The jalapenos and serrano peppers were popping black bruises on their skin. It was getting hard to breathe as it was when speaking with you. The heat from the comal warmed the space between us as he put the corn tortillas on, waiting longer than usual to flip them. I don't like soft tortillas. I like them hard. I remember you hated everything that fell apart in your hands. This one I based off a movie called El Norte. And anyways, yeah. Your favorite food is rice and beans. I never been all that picky when it came to food. If it was filling, it was good. Rice and beans are for poor people, my father would say to us many times. His family grew up poor on a ranch in Zacatecas. Our family now in the States, side by side, eating rice and beans to our tacos, enchiladas, tostadas, etc. You listened to me as I would say this across the table from you, sharing a bowl of sweet and sour chicken legs, our hands messy in sauce. You came to America when you were 8, a child speaking a different language, skin darker than mine. I tell you, my father still believes America is the best country in the world, and at 8, I believed him, as any child would believe their father, as any migrant would believe in the idea of America, and its great opportunities for a better life, for a better world. It has fooled me to be born a citizen. I must be lucky. You asked me what it's like to be God's favorite, to be as tired as I am. I tell you, we also dream more about the ending of ourselves. I tell you, there is no beginning, just a never-ending middle. Begin, beg in shame, you hear me, with a rope of threaded dollars tied around our necks. I just want to believe in the heaven of you and me. Believe in life in the same measure my sister doubts it. Be so fooled of our little heaven that no one has to pay the price for it. You see me no longer sitting at the table across from you, but right beside you, sleeping underneath the palm trees. The backyard lemon tree. I hang low in the sun and start to peel little specks of dead skin. I brush them off and wait for my eyes to feel heavy enough to fall asleep, like 2 heavy lemons falling from their stem, to break open on a side I used to peel for the slices that are still good, to see my future erode into a toothless smile. My mother puckers and says to not forget the sugar, to not forget to sprinkle little specks of sweetness on the slices that sting, and squeeze sour words still stinging on my tongue. This one's in loving memory of my Uncle Izzy. It's called I'm Your Tambourine Man because he really loved Bob Dylan. So there's a lot of Bob Dylan stuff here. You're my soulmate. You listen to my music with me. You know what I'm saying? I do know what you're saying. Even now, I can still see you chilling with a Bud Light, clutched with both hands, mouthing the words, for the times they are changing, and your breath is worth saving. While some didn't know what you were saying, I knew, and my dad knew, and everyone knew who my dad was talking to in the way he laughed. And I can still hear you two laughing, exhaustively, indistinguishably, like close brothers do. 2 rolling stones known to make each other feel home. Even now, blown in the wind in the eyes of many hurricanes, I will play a song for you. Even now, knocking on heaven's door. No, I'm your tambourine man, playing your memory in the songs everyone can hear you in the most sleepy, in the most not sleepy. I know there's a place we're going, not sleepy, ready for anywhere, anytime to listen to you sing through that crystal clear diamond sky. The woman in the red blouse. I watch the vapor rise from the white mug of coffee, sitting just as lonely beside her. Her partner smokes as she takes another bite of her sandwich. Her hand slightly grazes her partner's. I walk past like a ghost and smoke secondhand into a cigar store that no longer sells cigars and order an eggplant parmigiana. Right behind me is a typewriter sitting just as lonely as furniture near the corner window for people to walk by and imagine writing, as I imagine ghosts appearing and typing away words of how much they used to love the city. Their love vaporizes, but like smoke, it clings to the air, the woman's red blouse and into my curls. Their love lingers in caffeinated memories that keep them awake for all the time as I stay awake, watching our bits of existence fall like ash to the floor. One last poem, if I can get there. Still one of my favorite poems that I've written, and it's after Juan Felipe Perez, The Man with a Cactus Heart. It's called I retitled it as The Woman with a Cactus Heart. I'm returning home with a few added spines. I pricked you because you pricked me. I imagine my great-grandfather melting them off for the cattle to graze me to nothing, then have me return to the ground where I'll stop imagining you with the ocean in the background. A margarita from the Earth's cup. I won't drink it in, only lick the salt off the rim and reach for the lime to squeeze dry the memories I keep returning to, turning the ground of myself to be like the sand the ocean washes away with. Thank you.
Awesome. So as promised, you get a question. Michaela, do you like easy questions or difficult questions?
I like easy questions. But if you want to throw in a difficult one, you can.
Nah, I think it's an easy one. It might not be. Anyways, so the question is, and if we do have a Q&A, then I'll ask everybody else the really tough ones, like the stuff that makes you cry. But so I notice you have a lot of shorter poems. So what is your process of when you have to whittle the poems down, or are they just done quickly?
Do you want me to go back up there? Or?
Yes, they can't hear you.
Yeah.
You can. Oh, should we? No,
Wait.
no. You're good.
It all depends. To me, I see them as moments, and so like I just write down a moment that's either, I don't know, or I'll focus on something or meditate on something, and it's just, I think of a moment that attaches to that something, like a painting, so like, or some, like it just reminds, anything that pops up is like a generative like springboard. And I find that with art, like one was based off of a movie called El Norte. I wrote another one, I didn't read it tonight, from Zoot Suit. And so it's just like, I feel like you're always in conversation with art and with voices that you've, from other poets too, like even like with your work, within everyone's work. And it's like, wow, like I really love that line. And sometimes I'll use that line to start something. And so, and then also give credit when credit's due. So, yeah, and I like short. I hate like, I don't know. I wrote one short story, and that was like a very interesting experience. And I was like, I can't write 1,000 words. And I was like, I can do 800. Sometimes I do love prose poems, and some like, so to me, like I feel like 500 to 800 words is like a good space for me to be in. Less is better, like, I don't know. So it all depends what the moment is about and what comes from it.
Yeah, totally. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry. That was very long, lengthy.
Yeah, I think that the thing about moments, I think that's fantastic. And I think, in life, I think we should be celebrating moments and cherishing moments when they happen. For example, this moment for everyone out there to pick up a copy of Zirconium Ash by Jimmy, because it's awesome. And then you could write about a moment that you had while you were reading it at a cafe or in bed or at school when you're supposed to be writing your homework, or at work when you're supposed to be working, or at the gym when you're supposed to be doing something other than reading, but read it anyways. And one comment about longer pieces and shorter pieces, I've been wanting to write a novel for like too many years. But then every time I get to a certain amount of pages, I forget where I was at. So I had to reread it, and I'm not a big reader. And it just, there it goes. But maybe I could hire someone to read it to me. Oh, no, because then I'd have to listen. You know what? I don't think it's going to work out. All right. So our next reader, and I don't know, maybe you could talk about that cool joke. I'm not going to say it, but it was hilarious earlier. We had a funny joke today. I mentioned it, and it was hilarious to the people here. So if you're on YouTube, too bad. You don't get to laugh at our jokes. But anyways, please, everybody, welcome Adam.
All right. Well, I am very grateful to be here, and hello to everyone online. Jose, it's nice to be with you in the digital ether. And I hail from South LA via San Diego, so born and raised in SoCal, and really glad to be here to celebrate Jimmy. Congratulations again. And just writer of poems, editor of a journal that has been on hiatus for far too long, and trying to resurrect it, and just here to celebrate some amazing work by an amazing poet. So we'll get into it. This first thing I'll read is from one of my books that recently came out, called Compunctions and Thefts. It's a book-length poem, and in keeping with kind of like short, pieces that are kind of fragmented and everything. This is very much in that vein. I am chewing the satellite cud of millions in the Baroque garden parties of itinerant internet fame. False safety is where I am, and where I say it's too beautiful for contemplation. Split between a cracked lip and bad balance, a spreading collapse of mid-century aspirations, I am an electric yes, and you are my nemesis. Please Stay on the line for the next representative. Now I am an unglued seam, an open wound spreading fondly like extinct winter flowers. There is fire for ingestion, and our wintering has heat warnings. The season of bleach spills. Fantastic. I am an excavation in progress worked over by boot treads and my own desecration. I am a beleaguered catalyst between vertebrae and clavicle, and my posture is too close and familiar for comfort. Bravo, an unwritten vow resting behind a tongue and molar. The one lucid fucking thought I'm still trying to pry loose, like I can't find the wisdom I need. In 5 steps, I can make up 1,000 different resolutions and still fail to swim the dividing distance between the ends of the world and a sunset, between the hints of Sunday afternoon pathos, the pathos of fretting wounds, the pathos of dog ballads, the pathos of exhaust tongues. There are always paths to these costumes of malfeasance. I keep neat deviations of lineage melodies and the bright shards of sky embedded in my feet. I design a trap on an Etch-a-Sketch and call it a vehicle. This next couple are from another book that came out last year called The Sham Tapestry. This is Quadrupeds. And this is actually apropos of being here at Nervous Ghost. My ghosts are idle backhoes, my favorite love notes, are rusted peels resting in damp brush among abandoned construction sites, metal monsters. We age by our recollections, driving blind into melancholy, into our flooding chambers. What I am after? A bricolage of my haphazard bones with which to build a home, a ragged nest, and battered nights. Plot my whitewashed remembrances. These beasts befit the vows of affection just out of reach due to fear of displacement. I am looking for a line to a collection of greetings. Bibelots leaving, scattering and slipping, loving becoming scrap. Bone spurs. I find wisdom stitched into an empty parking lot and experience efficacy in a vacant building. They both shake from the compromise of electric lifelines. I glimmer most in a discussion about bone spurs and my love of urban mycology collected in tenements. I can pore over the minutiae of my bad teeth, risking disintegration and the frail kinship in my gesture of kisses. It is within spitting distance of a claim for compensation. However, I would like to need the relics of my affection for cataloging hallmarks of a sham tapestry, stitched with invisible threads, the faux holy light in a pair of hands holding up an airsat's optimism. This last statement is just a familiar howl of overkill, like the idea of plastic feathers promising meaning in a dream of flight. I feel overfull and gluttonous, a spectacle culminating in real-time failure. I am a pillar to no temple or fear, damp and murky behind an idle ladder, always a yes tripping over a self-made emergency, riddled with hologram stickers. The ones that make the cost look more attractive, a rainbow of illusion troubled by poor eyesight, failing in a revolution of halos or a bravado spinning like a dance that's more like a fall. I think I'll do one more from this and then some newer stuff. Inoculation. My injection site is sore. It makes a half promise for immunity. Lying on a coffee table, my stomach renders loud complaints of willful ignorance, delivery of a corrosion, mustering a feeling of knockdown. I am crossing off red notes of dumpster graphology and prescriptions of desirable affliction worn like poorly sewn patches stitched to a hide no longer young. My injection site is singing, and it solicits a half promise of warmth. My walls and my body are empty, standing still, torn lovingly, scratched and bruised crust, refining the withering process. I am a rendering of decomposition and struggling lists, window dressing and dripping machine, trust flipped on its back, flailing about, a hanging bouquet of electric wires, breathing brittle current. My injection site is tender. It asks for a half promise of liberation. It asks for too much. So these last couple of poems are from a new manuscript, which will eventually make its way into the world, but for now, it's here with me. So this is called The Swallow's Argument. Listen, hunter, hunter, scavenger, scavenger. Time to wind up all conspiracies and let a needle write down wiles, some other truths, some happiness burning, a bliss of wounds and their canvas of rust. My arms are now a chorus pursuing balance, craving the bloody jaws of wolves and shaking the scales of snakes. Behold the bare skin wearing red writing. This is a literature of trials and nightmares and nerves, a yoke of tableaus and sharp verities wash a bloody mess, and let the pigment run slow through the fingers. Sting, play the wounds, painter, painter, sculptor, sculptor, scuttle the idea of clean skin down the hides of purity obsessives, draw out the impossibly human face. Ask, where are we within the whisper drawn on dreams and nightmares? Let our bodies sing to each other in quiet passing. Hear the ancient bark knocking a blue necklace of teeth, articulating the metrics of daydream architecture on the inside of the upper arm. Believe the recondite lines of a swallow's protest, singing on a stranger's naked shoulder. Underweight. Tenderness is underweight, an imminent flop in these hands. Place the parts in a vase and rent a line of mercy. Just add a nervous hole punched through a wall and let the fingers soak up their blue flaws, blind to dear laughter. My ache is the last Friday before switching off the sweet talk, a slap across my ambition to draw bright lines for touch. I'll crush salt 3 times and sanctify the couch with a vacuity like falling into a dry well. I can't find my deliberate manual for dumb shit, and my peacock exhibition exhausted years ago. These days, all the months fill with fire and fealty, spoiled performances. I'm not feeling the spirit. I'm feeling the maudlin tool of expiration crafted within my bedroom. I'm trying sympathy and a clap and a slow hobble on Midnight Boulevard, paved with spine, carved with fingernails and ephemera. To know this rawness is to open a dry mouth. I'm trying to mend a sunset so the page can finally bruise, a dam to break open. This is going to be my last one. It's called Salting My Eye. This evening, a sidewalk is peeling an orange in winter. In my absence and vanity burn bright lines into my misgivings. I look for waste and dump noise into a cross-contamination of consonants, performing hope like a billboard, ultimately losing to the sun's concerns, a thirsty green fealty. The end. I develop into a wick, dreaming of becoming a bouquet made to transport crude zeros and barbs to the threshold of a cutting rhetoric. Transmissions. Abbreviations between bedrooms converting bad composition into conditional circuits. Trivial digits growl one-sided questions into the swallow of night. The light switches are up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, slur, dream, nervous, judgment, and knock-knock laughter. Make good on heavy niceties, nervous smiles, and veiled prescriptions designed for the architecture of a headache playing a lean on teeth. An atrocity recipe kicked up in daylight in the wake of a passing bus and slow scowl declaring the end of transactional rests, like a pastime slipping into a coma, breathe into an exit steeped in smoke. And the routine will land with a sting battered by loose identities in exchange for erratic enunciations, doling out dumb smiles and venerations to grow a seedling, a rose-colored past burning to breed lionization. Thanks. You ready with the questions, Matthew?
I was going to say, what are you still doing there?
I'm ready. I'm ready.
All right, so the question I have for you is, from so many different kind of bodies of work and different things, how do you decide on days like this when you're going to go and read a couple poems, which ones to read versus, or that, but also, do you ever write poems and you know this poem needs to be read inside someone's head versus this one I need to talk about, or I need to speak out loud?
That's a great question. So as to the first part, I think much of what is read is dictated kind of just by where I'm at emotionally. Sometimes it's by just happenstance that I come across a word and in something I've written, and perhaps that is relevant to the season that we're in, or maybe like the particular, space in terms of, news cycle, or like something going on like in my neighborhood, or my own emotional state. And so really those are the things that kind of dictate like the decision behind like what pieces I want to read. In terms of how the work is written, like on the page, and then what I'm reading. So when I read, it's very linear. But a lot of my work, the formatting is very, very open on the page. And part of that is because of my neurodivergence. And so how I process language and how I kind of, relate to my environments and how I communicate with other people in normal conversation, the language is broken up in a way that will kind of manifest itself on the page differently than maybe how I read it. So the way that you hear it and how I'm, trying to execute the reading and stuff is intended to kind of create like almost a disconnect, so that hopefully when someone goes back and if they read my work, they would be able to kind of feel the sense of discomfort and disconnection in a way where how I perceive and process language is then kind of put onto the page, and then hopefully they will read it back to themselves to be able to kind of immerse themselves in that feeling, that sensation. So, yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. There's a very common and probably cliche these days, kind of thing about writing is write what you know. And it's basically, just write what you know, what you've lived, your experiences, your emotions, all of those things, and your language. And I've been getting into this really cool theory or theories of language and literacy these days, which is awesome. And that's what that reminded me of. I'm not going to talk about it because that's too far into where we don't want to go. But what it reminded me of as far as language and solid language, like language where you're reading, you're like, damn, this is some good ass language. It's right here. And what we're celebrating today in Jimmy Vega's ZIRCONIUM ASH. So if you want to read some good ass language, here it is. All right, up next, let's see, 1, 2, 3, number 4. And then so we have, this is going to be our midway point. Do intermissions? No, intermissions don't work. There's 6 of us. Right? Intermissions don't work? I don't. Anyways, I want to make a cool graphic of like back in the day when they had the little, the drive-ins with the little popcorn dancing around. Anyway, today would probably be like a cell phone and really stupid. But anyways, what an intro, right? Please welcome everybody, Genesis.
the vibe for today's outfit was, what if I was a Pokemon trainer? Literally, seriously, yeah. Nah, Jimmy and I work together, for anyone on the live stream who doesn't know. And last night, as we were getting in our cars, went, "Hey, I have a request." So this is that poem, and it's from a series of poems I'm working on about people in my family, people that I really love that have passed away that I've never written about before. I write a lot about like 3 or 4 really big deaths in my life, but I'm trying to write about a couple of other ones that maybe I didn't process or never really got to. This one's a little bit about my cousin. This one's a lot about being Mexican American. It's about a lot of things, and it's called First on My List. The first on my list is the spray tan, fake hair, fake air, fake who sold my cousin an American dream before he died. Do you know how many Latino men die from cirrhosis of the liver? Do you know how many Latino men deny their blood, betray their last name, and martyr draw in the name of Americana? Do you know, to be Mexican, American, is to be neither until the Americans can make money off of you? Yes, Mr. Billionaire. I'll buy your American flag and your bleach blonde sex doll and your lifted truck and your branded Bible. And when I'm done praying to your mogul father, I will drink until I can't feel the ghosts anymore. Do you know how many die in the desert every year? Do you know burial without a tombstone? Do you know burial without a prayer? Do you know how many ghosts we have? Oh, I want to choke you with unprayed contrition. Oh, I want to choke you with rusted barbed wire. Oh, I want to choke you with the bottle that killed my cousin. Do you know how you lingered over my dinner table like a ghost? Do you know your name was an act of violence in that house? Do you know I want to hold your name like a trachea in my teeth? This is for my uncle on the other side of the family. That's one side of the family. This is my uncle on the other side. This is new shit. This is wrote this on my break at work shit. This is just called Freak. Your sister slings it out the window of the bus like David as you skateboard down Wainimi Beach. Hot pink mohawk makes you Goliath on wheels. You are pure Chicano. You are Pachuco. You are brown and proud. Spell Wainimi the Shumash way. The P stands for punk. The J stands for jams. The P stands for paddle out. And the J stands for Jesus himself doesn't love nardcore as much as you. You are 6 feet of go fuck yourself, and the cops and the posers and the neo-Nazis who keep pulling up and crashing Ventura County hardcore shows. Pink blur of Hispanic panic on Wainima Beach, spelt the Shumash way. And there are a few things I hate more than ice and not being able to talk to you. Thanks. I miss my cousin Scotty. I miss my uncle PJ. It's the downside of being from a really, really big family is that a lot of people die. But there's still so many of us around, and we all live within an uncomfortably tiny radius of each other. Like, I walk a certain amount of feet one way, I hit someone's house. If I walk the other way, I hit someone else's house. The other day, I picked up my great-grandma at the bus stop. I was like, whose grandma's that on that? That's my grandma on the street corner. Drove her, pulled up, went, what are you doing? She went, I'm going to the mall. I went, get in my car. Why are you on the street corner? You're 87. Yeah, that's my neighborhood. This is all everything that's printed out is new shit, and this is one I was working on the other day. I still don't love the title. We'll see how it sounds out loud. This is We're Always Kissing on Sunset. Okay. Y'all, shout out to Adam for being the dad of the group and making that noise. Anyway, okay. We're Always Kissing on Sunset. Exsanguinated in East Hollywood as the previous poet leaves early to pick up a friend from LAX. I sigh, that's a new LA moment. Eyeing the other poets thinking, is tonight the night we kiss? But we don't. Because there is still a drop of professionalism in the parts of my body not replaced with saline, Portuguese wine, or good news. Plus, I fuck actors now anyway. The real kind you can look up, whose kisses taste like whiskey, cola, and nail polish remover. On this hot December night, I want to dance down the street to the apartment my mom and I stayed at while she underwent radiation. I want to sing at the top of my lungs that I'm not afraid of my blood or angry at my God for taking my body away from me before I got the chance to love it. Instead, I get to be all the things that I am and all the things I want, and I want to eat Thai food with my friends, and I want to kiss you deep on Sunset, and I want everyone to get home safe. Maybe tonight I'll drive topless down the 101 back to Ventura, letting the air dance in my hair under the full moon because it's free and mostly legal. You gotta double check what county. This is another family poem. This one's called Last Night I Forgot I'm Beautiful. Last night I forgot I'm beautiful. Before I was this world's, I was my mother's. And she went into the garden, found the richest soil, rolled it between her fingertips to make my eyes. Before I was hers, I was her mother's, who used an embroidery needle to plant my thick dark hair. Before I was hers, I was her mother's, who laughed up love songs and planted it in my throat. Before I was this world's, I was my father's. And he scoured the beach for shells and sea glass that he sharpened to make my teeth. Before I was his father's, who brought clay from Tenochtitlan to sculpt my delicate fingers and toes. And then he handed me to my grandma, who painted on my pink cheeks, pink lips, and long eyelashes. Before I was this world's, I was my ancestors. And every time this world tries to cut me up and make me feel small, I know there is not a part of me not crafted with love. I got one more, and I have a slightly embarrassing story that goes with it. Jose's not here in person, but back in my car, I have his first appearance in Poetry Magazine, which was in 2020. I have it because I had a subscription to Poetry Magazine at the time, and I've been a huge fan ever since. So it's always a pleasure to get invited to read somewhere. It's a huge honor to get invited to read as a part of any of Jimmy's events. It's a huge, exciting opportunity to read here at the Nervous Ghost Space, and I'm so stoked to be on a bill with Jose Hernandez Diaz, who I've been reading and kind of fangirling over for a long time. So I know you're not here in person, Jose, but you are loved. Everyone here in this space appreciates you. And in honor of that, I wanted to read an old-ass poem, because everything else I read was new shit. This is so old, I have it memorized from back when I did slam. Old shit. Still in high school and having a blonde fade shit. And it kind of follows that theme of being in a room of writers and people who you love and respect and who just keep pushing you to be your best and keep pushing you to write, and also just like you read their shit and you're like, I gotta write now. Like, this is amazing. It's that feeling. And I was so lucky at that time to have a really great artist community, and I'm incredibly blessed now to have such an amazing artist community to be a part of. And this poem's called Jury of My Peers. Calloused hands on paper lurk. It looks like a scribble, but these lines become mythical, twisting, winding, looping, lyrical. Ink, an elaborate eternal. Eloquent epiphany turns into mid-stanza symphony sometimes. So silky smooth. But if it needs to be, I can make it staccato, onomatopoeia abruptly interrupting a line. And it's not easy. It takes syntax, diction, rhyming, daydreaming, and believing that these lips can spin stories and that these hands can turn open book into an opportunity to create something not quite concrete. You see, it's just as visual as any painting, but instead of waiting for the image to dry, I drag my fingertips across the surface, exposing the lines that make me nervous. Use language boldly, folding phrases like origami until everything fits into perfect, precise pieces. Then destroying, toying with the emotion, the sensation, scream out, venting every frustration, land verbal punches, no hesitation. This is not a chance or coincidence. See, this is a choice. This is clawing at my throat to find my voice. You see, this is a gift that grows in the hands of others. These are my muses, my sisters, my brothers. Through this, there is no vision without suffering, no dream with chasing, without buffering. There is no completed work without heart. And as the words fall apart, as they sometimes do, I shred pages apart and begin anew. When I am desperate, I am not destitute, because I know there is no substitute for hard work. Thank you all. I'm so scared, Matthew. What are you going to ask me?
Well, first of all, Jose was clapping on the Zoom. So
What was tapping? Oh, I was tapping?
Jose was clapping.
Oh, clapping.
Yeah. He could see us, but we can't see him yet. But soon we will. I think I need to figure out like the fourth or fifth angle of all the cameras. I'm not a camera person. So my question is not a heavy question. Could be a heavy question. First of all, I think that one title is good. It works. And I like titles. You could ask Ian, just whether my opinion means anything. But Ian is always like, Matt likes titles. I'm like, I like titles. But I do. I think the title works. And as far as questions, mine is when you're so. I think a lot about ancestry and things and where I'm at and what my bones mean and all this kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. But when you're writing certain things about family and people that we lose, at some point, while you're writing or typing, however your process is, do you stop because you know where you're going to go and you don't want to go there? Do you let yourself fall into that pit and go into that place knowing that you'll come out? Or do you just go, hey, this is the poem, it's going to take me where it goes. I'm going to figure it out when I get there.
I like to go on a bit of a ride with the poem. Sometimes the last line will come first, and then you're just kind of like playing the tape back and going, okay, well now how do we get here? What are we? And then so it slowly starts kind of like stacking up on top of each other. I think with both of the poems that I read tonight about my family members and the losses within my family, the last lines didn't come first. The last lines very much came after tinkering and toying, especially in that first one. I rewrote that last line a few times. So sometimes the poem takes me on a ride. Sometimes it shows me the end part, and it's like, okay, now you have to get there yourself. But writing about death, it's one of my favorite things. I put up a poll on my Instagram story, and I was like, anyone want to guess what my set's going to be about? And everyone was like, you're going to talk about death again, aren't you? So I talk about it so frequently, and like Dia de los Muertos is my favorite holiday, talking about our loved ones and talking about our inspirations and our teachers and our people who've passed on. That's how we keep them here. And so that's a practice that I try to put in all of my work and in all of the stories that I tell. I love telling stories about my dead family members. Hit me up. I got some good ones. But yeah.
Yeah, I think that's true, and I think a lot of people are not afraid, but are hesitant or reserved to talk about death and things that involve dead family. But there's so much beauty in it, because if there were no death, there would be no us.
Yeah.
And it sucks that we're the ones who are alive that have to carry it, of course. But then there's also strength in the carrying it, and in the telling the stories. And without those stories, we wouldn't have our stories and all these different things. So I think writing is, of course, and absolutely a great way to capture that beauty and that power, and to share it in a very digital age. Yeah. Which is ironic because we're all digital right now. But but thank you. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
So if you're ever around out there, around April is when the LA Festival of Books happens, and I'm always there. I think Jimmy's always there. Genesis is always there. But we hung out, and Brenda too. We hung out this year at AWP in LA, and it was cool because I see him every once in a while at the festivals and at places, and I'm like, I know who that is. Like, who is it? And then like, oh my gosh, that's who it was. But I bring up that story because if I didn't know who they were and recognize their faces, we wouldn't be here today celebrating the book. Of course, that was a pretty sick segue, huh? Anyway, all right. So now we are gonna practice the technological advances of the digital world to get Zoom. So normally, and some people might not know this, but in the program that I use, there are scenes, and I would switch from the in-person scene to the online scene. And I realized today I could just change the camera instead. And that just seems so much easier. So we're going to see if that works. So I'm going to turn off the set camera. Okay, that was easy. There we go. And I'm going to turn on Jose, who is going to be our next speaker. So whenever you're ready, wait until your face appears, and you won't know that. I'll let you know. I'll let you know when your face appears. And it is now. Oh my God. I did it. I did it. All right, everybody. Please give a warm welcome to Jose.
Hello, everybody. I wish I could be there. Sorry I couldn't be there. Been having some mobility issues, but I'm glad that hopefully the connection works and you can hear me read. Can you hear me pretty good? Yes? Okay, great. So I just want to say, first off, it's an honor to read here with everybody. It's tough with the news cycle and all the doom and gloom on the news and the authoritarian governments and just the ICE and corruption. And so it's great to be united with poets and artists and scholars and friends, and hopefully in the new year I can start going back in person to some events. That's my new Year's goal, if you will. But Jimmy, also congratulations on the book. It really is dynamic, and from the language experimentation to the form and identity and just like the new generation of Latinx poetry and Chicano poetry, and just to see everybody here, the new generation of writers, it's really inspiring. And from Michaela to Genesis and Adam and Matthew, everybody, it was just really inspiring, as I say, especially in the face of what we're dealing with here nationally. But I'm going to start off reading some new poems. I just got a magazine in the mail like 2 hours ago, and it has a new prose poem from a new manuscript. And this piece is called How It All Ended. My last day on Earth was caused by the novel 1984 by George Orwell coming to life. I was at the public library in Downey, minding my business, when the novel 1984 started flying around the nondescript room. It started spewing hot flames in every direction. I stumbled over my chair and took cover in the biography section. I hid under a biography of Jean-Michel Basquiat, It was written by a scholar from Yale University Press. Eventually, the novel 1984 flew out of the library. It began to douse the city in flames, the entire state in flames, the country as well. On the last day of Earth, the novel 1984 by George Orwell came to life and wiped us off the planet. In retrospect, the ending of the world was predicted on the last page of 1984. We should have seen it coming. And also, kind of sticking with the new work theme, I have a piece here that today was nominated for Best Microfiction, and it's called The Search. A man in the world is burning shirt went outside of his cabin in the woods in search of his name. Was it Gaston? Was it Federico? Was it Basquiat? Was he named after a famous artist? Was he named after a peasant farmer, a communist revolutionary? The man in the world is burning shirt went to the public library next to the woods to look for his forgotten name. He considered his name to be Petrarch, Miguel, David, Hakeem Olajuwon. Was he famous? Was he grand? Was he a champion? A beggar? Somewhere in the middle? When he finally found his name, it was written on the bottom of his bedroom slipper. His name, it turns out, was exist, exister, existed, existence, existing, exist. And this next one here is an ode, and it was written for my sister Letty, who was the first in the family to go to college, also the first literature English major in the family. And it's called Ode to My Older Sister Letty for being the first in the family to go to college. I'm not sure if you knew it at the time, but you showed us, your younger siblings, a great example. Maybe you were just happy going away to college, away from the responsibilities of watching over younger siblings all the time. But I always remembered having pride when I tell people my sister is an English major, and even more so when you became a teacher. In fact, you were the first Latina teacher I ever saw on campus when you came and substituted at my high school. All the kids giggling, "Is that your sister? She looks just like you. How cool. Tell her to give you an A." Not sure if you knew it then, but thank you for making me proud. I don't know what I wanted. I didn't know what I wanted to be at the time. Maybe I could be an English major, an English teacher, a writer. Maybe I could write a book of poems. Maybe. Yes, of course. Why not? Um, and then getting to the really new stuff, I wrote, I teach a lot of generative workshops on the weekend, Saturday and Sunday mornings. And this one was written on this Sunday with my writing group. It's called Hang Loose. A phoenix rose from the flames of hell and went to the beach to cool off. He listened to the Beach Boys on his cell phone and sat on the sand beneath the summer sun. The phoenix went out on a longboard and caught some gnarly waves, exhibiting fancy footwork on the slick board. The phoenix, who just a few minutes ago ascended from the depths of a tormenting inferno, started hanging 10 on an ideal wave in Waikiki to let go of the past, toes splashed by the chill water. He threw up the hang loose sign to a couple of lady surfers who were paddling out. After the phoenix finished surfing at sunset, he went to a local burger stand and had an aloha burger, aka pineapple burger. As the moon rose over the iconic island, the phoenix remorsefully remembered the bitter flames and sores he'd endured during his recent years, which felt like purgatory. There was no going back, he prayed. He'd suffered enough. And now I'm going to read from my latest collection. It's called Portrait of the Artist as a Brown Man. And this collection, it was published by Red Hen Press, and it is the winner of the Benjamin Saltman Award. And I'm going to start with another ode. It's called Ode to Agua de Jamaica. An essential cold drink at a mom-and-pop Mexican restaurant, best served in the summertime heat waves of mid-August. Plenty of solid ice cubes to dilute the sharp bitterness. Best consumed with tacos de asada or burritos de pollo asado. Are you from Jamaica or Latin America? Saturine thirst quencher. I found you in my barrio at a local Mexican restaurant, southeast of Los Angeles, west of Americana. I remember drinking you from a plastic bag with a straw while visiting my abuelitos in Guanajuato, Mexico, during summertime visits while on break from school. Such a rich, refreshing, vibrant red beverage. This next one is also from the collection, and it's called, from the first section of odes, called Ode to the Melting of Ice. Just leave already. You're too old in your ways. No one likes you. How do you look yourself in the mirror? Why do you treat people like that? Have you no conscience? It is foolish to even suggest you might have one. You do not own the land. You can never own the land. Why don't you melt away in the summer sun? Why don't you melt away in the summer sun? You incite hate in the eyes of your citizens. You justify murder and rape and cages. Go away and never come back. Go away. It's better like that. This next one, on the weekend, I like to watch a lot of boxing with my cousins here in Norwalk, and it's called Ode to Boxing. You're always there for me on the weekend when I need a good show, something to root for, with the beer in hand and the company of cousins shouting, cheering at the spectacle. I want to see a Mexican fighter showing bravery, skill, and a victory. I want to see myself reflected in brown men with Aztec tattoos and short fade haircuts like mine. Sure, it can get violent. The world is also violent, but there is plenty of technique which takes years to master, moving and sticking. These working class men come from backgrounds like mine, tough barrios like mine, with Spanish last names like mine. For now, Monday morning, the work week just beginning, watch my fancy footwork and jab as I swing like a hungry underdog aiming for a title. And this next one here, we'll do two more, is called 20 Alternative Careers to Academic Poet. Number one, big wave surfer. Number two, avant garde saxophonist. Number three, pastry chef. Number four, memoirist. Number five, governor of absurdism. Number six, retired clergy. Number seven, shortstop for the Dodgers. Number eight, professor of paletas michoacanas. Number nine, librarian. Number 10, scarecrow. Number 11, lead guitarist for the Mars Volta. Number 12, government spy. 13, statue in the park. 14, prima ballerina. 15, John Paul Sartre's ghost. 16, bodyguard for Pablo Neruda. 17, an idea with humorous appeal. 18, doctor of generosity. 19, un cotoro en la selva. 20, una memoria de lluvia. And I'm going to do one more from the book, and then I'm going to do a poem in Spanish by memory, just because, right now there's a lot of actually laws that if you speak Spanish, you can get thrown into a cage. So I want to read a poem in Spanish from memory. It's not my poem, but from Vicente Odobro. But before we do that, this one is called Who's That You're Looking For? And it's one of my older poems. Does her name begin with X? I don't know if it'll rain. The weatherman says 60% chance. This is the last time we'll speak. As lovers, we may remain friends. What's your favorite continent? Mine's North America. Stop shouting. We're inches away. Inches away. We fell like something other than sunset, unbeautiful. The next bus arrives at 11:15. It's also the last bus. Hurry up. Wait. Timing isn't everything. Power is everything. Power in politics. Whatever. Don't pretend to miss me. All you really need is Netflix and a couple scoops of pistachio ice cream. Let me just get a quick drink. So hopefully you could hear me. I don't know how the audio is, but Here's the poem in Spanish. As I said, a lot of times in these times we live in, you can be judged for your color, and for if you're speaking Spanish, you can be interrogated and thrown into cells. And so this poem is called Arte Poética by Vicente Odobro. And I can't memorize a lot of poems in Spanish, but for some reason I can memorize this one. I think it's because of the musicality of it. Arte Poética. Que el verso sea como una llave que abra mil puertas, una hoja cae, algo pasa volando. Cuanto miren los ojos, creado sea, el alma del oyente queda temblando. Inventa mundos nuevos y cuida tu palabra. El adjetivo, cuando no da vida, mata. Estamos en el ciclo de los nervios. El músculo cuelga como recuerdo en los museos. Más, no por eso, tenemos menos fuerza. El vigor verdadero reside en la cabeza. ¿Por qué cantéis la rosa, oh poetas, hacerla florecer en el poema? Solo para nosotros viven todas las cosas bajo el sol. El poeta es un pequeño Dios. Thank you.
Thank you. So a couple things. So absolutely, I think
Sure.
language is our power, and in the theories I'm learning about, it's a lot of, it's called, what do they say, is our full linguistic repertoire, which is like, we grow up, we hear a language of our parents, our community, our friends, our family members, and so on. Those are our words, and we use it, and we have to use it. And I think writing is such a powerful tool that we have, and so I'm glad that you read the poem, and I'm glad that you speak from your words. A question I have is about your approach to different readings and performances in person or online, because I know that when I'm online, it's, it feels a little different. You don't get to see the people around. And so how do you bring the energy when you're in person versus when you're online?
Well, I think naturally there's more energy in person just because, you're vibing with the room and everything. But right now, I just sort of have to try to channel it and as much as I can. I think if the entire reading is online, then the kind of energy is a little more balanced like that. So it's a little bit easier. This is a little more difficult when you're sort of the only one online. But, we work with what we can. And I appreciate the opportunity, because normally I've been missing a lot of readings lately with my physical health issues. So I think really it's just a matter of sometimes maybe not over preparing, but having some sort of vision for the reading list, but not really reading it over and over, because then it can feel over prepared. So a good balance between preparing and trying to maintain some of that spontaneity, energy, that duende, and inspiration as well. So
Thank you, and I'm glad you're here. I'm glad that we were able to figure it out, because I'm always early, so I've been here for a while, and then I'm like, when I found out, I'm gonna make it happen, because I'm not gonna let this be a barrier. Like, I've been excluded from certain things.
That.
I have a lot of people who have been excluded from things. I'm like, it's not gonna happen. We're gonna figure it out. We got the extra cameras, whatever it is, the things that we're gonna make it work. But so I'm glad you didn't say I can't be there.
Oh no, I appreciate that.
Totally.
I'm always available for online. Most of my teaching right now is online. I had to leave a teaching gig I was doing for mobility issues as well. So right now I'm mostly online. But yeah, I appreciate the effort, and it's important that we can unite and hear our voice, like I said, for the next generation of Southern California artists and poets. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. All right, so while I'm looking at my notes here, in case anybody's curious, I have no notes on Jimmy. That's supposed to be the whole point, right? No, maybe, I don't know. So, before I introduce Jimmy officially, I have to remind everybody, and I'm not good at this, and it feels so gross, but you have to, follow us and do all the button clicking and all those things. Subscribe, yeah. Which I don't know what you would. I'm not sure exactly what you'll subscribe to, but do it. Do it. All right, so let me read this intro for Jimmy, and then I'll talk about Jimmy in all the ways that I know him. Right, Jimmy? Officially, Jimmy Vega is the child of Mexican immigrants, a Chicano Los Angeles poet, educator, and interdisciplinary artist. He holds a BA from UCLA in English and an MFA from California Institute of the Arts Creative Writing Program. Vega has presented work at Red Cat, Poetic Research Bureau, the Sims Library, Poetry Associated Writing Programs Conference, Beyond Baroque, Mark Taper Auditorium at the Los Angeles Central Library, the Thinking as Presence Conference, and at the Reef, Los Angeles, as part of the group exhibition Spelling. Oh, that's the Reef, the big building? Yeah. By Trade Tech. I used to teach at Trade. Oh, I was always curious. What that was. Anyway. Would you believe me that I thought of that comment when I read this before? Nah, that's how smooth it was. Vega is commissioned to write new work by the City of LA as a former English language learning faculty fellow at Cal Arts and presently is the associate director of Beyond Baroque Literary Arts Center. He lives in LA on unceded Tongva land. Zirconium Ash is Vega's debut poetry collection, and you can visit him at Jimmy. Is it dash Vega.com. All right, so we're here today to celebrate the release of Jimmy's book right here. You could also see it there. And he's going to read for us, and then we're going to have a bunch of questions, of course, because we want to know whose brain this is. And people have their favorite poems. I hope, and there's no pressure here, that Jimmy reads page 50. Just saying. I think that was pretty good. But please, everybody in person, everybody online, and now in the past and the future, welcome Jimmy Vega.
Thanks, Matt. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for being here. Thanks to all the readers for reading. Y'all have been incredible. And thank you so much, Jose, for joining us online. I also want to echo Genesis. Jose, I don't know. I always feel like Jose is like my big brother. I'm the oldest, so I'm always like, Jose's my big bro. And I too remember seeing Fire Eater, and I know Jose, we're both from Southeast LA. He's from Norwalk, I'm from Linwood. And, when I was seeing Fire Eater, when that came out, that was like so important to see, like contemporary, a Chicano poet putting out dope work and talking about the freeway. And that was so inspiring to me. So thank you, Jose, and thank you all for being here. I will read page 50. But I'm going to start with Face Ghost. I'm sorry, Freeway Ghost. Because I'd rather be ghost rummaging LA city, dizzy, lost, and fractal. Remember, tangled the car again in cul-de-sac candelabra. Crashed my blue voice on Cesar Chavez Bridge and laughed at myself. Swallowing sunset skies on 6th Street. This is not a poem. This is an exorcism. 'Cause I'd rather be ghost yawning sleep eyes, heavy driving the 101. Scribbled songs in polycarbonate. Call it a mixtape. Abandon it in asphalt. I'll find you there. I'll be the lamb wrapped in cellophane, hidden under Parataxis icebox. 'Cause I'd rather be ghost-like lodged underneath fingernails. Said I'd swallow 6 streets to replace my own fragmented voice. This is not a poem. This is a reckoning. Can you taste this? Tectonic novelty. Nights I drove in impermanence. Headlights in pitch, 710 or else the 105, driving the 91 eastbound, something sad playing on car stereo, shadow play on the highway, pedal pushing 95 past the overpass, radiator howling, cast shadow glistening in freeway light, blurry syncopated images of cars and walls and signs and palmettos coming to me a posteriori. I swear the city hides in the back of my lungs even now. You lost all your LA privileges. I neo-radiate your old address on the pretty tips of my skull. Wandering again, cloudy crashing cyberspaces, trying to exit the playlists etched in your peripherals. And I hate writing poems about you. I overhear on the green line, searching for the gold thread of my unlucky tooth. Look, the pigeon tells the rat, remember, salt of my coastal line, vomit enough until I no longer sense your touch, your mouth swallowed waves. You still read text that isn't blue lit? My back keeps getting jammed. The wine stains on my desk are getting messy. You still fumble around for your keys in the morning. Last night, I rearranged my astrology chart. I couldn't read my fucking tea leaves even if I cried. You still eat razor wire to taste sunshine? Frustrations rose in undertone. City lilac convergence on the daisy of my eye. Unfurled oceanic breeze, polar ice caps melting your crooked smile. Anxieties abandoned on PCH. What other line should I unsubscribe? And I hate writing poems about global warming, but here I am again. And you roll your eyes sliding off the bed. French press depression, 4-minute timer dripping away groggy sighs. And maybe you are tone deaf. I ain't mad at you. My voice only lingers in waves, microcosmic, different color of your iris. I stain my mind Merlot to fantasize about my sleep phantoms, tonguing your fluorescent crown past my nostalgic grave, with breath walking up the second story of my low theory headache as I too shuddered at my own vertebrae. I've been dreaming in exile, my triptych dusty, unsettled, or unenthused. 3 Hail Marys for you and modernity. You ever wish you were everywhere inside? In June, you were your own bruise. In kitchen morning, what were your last words? Y'all made me feel like I need to read some new shit, so I'm kind of gonna do that. This one actually was this poem was written a long time ago, and it was maybe supposed to make its way into this book, and then it just kind of hid away from me, and now it's not, but it's in this Montanaut 19. It just came out, and the title kind of goes into the poem. X tells me she's tired of trying, tired of everything constantly shattering. Someone threw a brick to the window of her irises, and now everything she tastes is colored blackish blue. She hardly stains her lips these days. Nothing matches the fear of her father being deported. But she gets up every morning anyway, despite the taste of metal that lingers in her mouth after she stopped dreaming. X tells me she's tired of listening to slow dive songs. whispering melodies inside the hem of sleep, trying to erase cacophonies like amber rain. I can have my world destroyed. I'm used to it. She sighs as if heartache was a private soliloquy to God, dust-stained knees on the verge of fragility, mumbling invocations like reading a laundry list to herself, tasting salt of casted sigils. X tells me she's tired of trying, tired of sleeping, tired of eating, tired of dealing with deferentials, tired of dreaming, tired of collecting letters from the Department of Justice, tired of cheap wine breath staining her voice red, tired of 1:08 a.m. phone calls, tired of feeling defeated. X tells me she's tired of pressing keys. Chopin won't cure her heartache or hide her father from ice. She's tired of circling cloud corners inside her ruminations like heavy sleep lids during Nocturne number 20 in C-sharp minor, like Nocturne number 20 in C-sharp minor. This one's for Matt, for Nervous Ghost. This one's called actually let me back up. This one's called Face Ghost. There's a portion in this book that I haven't really talked about, and I don't really read those poems, but the book is broken into 5 pieces, and there's a portion here titled "Sometimes I Wish I Could Fax This to You." And it's 4 poems that are guzzles, but I've kind of remixed the form. And so to remind you folks of what a ghazal is, it's an old Persian poetry form. It's usually in couplets, and it usually has a hard syllabic count. So every line has a certain count of syllables in it. Right now, I don't remember what that count is, but those are some of the characteristics. And it also has, throughout the poem, it'll have a few words that rhyme towards the end. And then very common for a ghazal is to have the poet's name appear at the end of the poem, because it's a very spoken form before people wrote books. So the poet or the performer or the storyteller would kind of come in the end. So that's kind of what's going on here. But the way I remixed it is I made a playlist of a bunch of covers of songs, and then I grabbed a couple of lines from every song in that playlist, and some of those lines are in the ghazal. So it's a very kind of experimental form that I created. It's very complicated. I wrote a whole essay on it, but there's a few in here, and this one's for Matt. It's titled Face Ghost. Remember when you said, there is weight in the words we've said, speeding down the 101 north, bypass traffic? I quietly said, begrudgingly, where do you drive when I sleep hide away from you? Streetlights mirror, windshield glare, amber, yellow, red, burning my nausea. Your shadow, listless tact, your fave shade. As if betrayal in sleep didn't mean much happening from bed. Before you confess, painted your hubris pigeon gray or red. You deep shouted and wished your washed concrete conscious dead. Sometimes your haunting reappears in sidewalk undertones, shadow southbound, slack-jawed, side, slump, sleepy-eyed. Who said anything about tunnel dusk forgiveness? Yet you yeet, jimmied quiet again. Same ghosts that keep me awake are dead. Okay, 2 more. I was telling Jenna earlier, like, there was no plan. Like, I had kind of I kind of usually do have a set list, but today I kind of wanted to roll with it. This is an old one. It's titled Marigold and Fugue in D minor. X presses keys as blood stains desert floors in Sonora and Sueños Americano are devoured by vultures or lack of water. El desierto es muy misterioso, they tell me, as white crosses are tucked inside tierra in southern Arizona. Rosary beads glisten tucked in dirt or else clenched like yellowed cavities. X says they miss me, as children are crammed in cages without their mother's heartbeat in La Frontera, sighing as they mismatch their socks or else the sign of the cross, and the women in El Camino del Diablo REM sleep of khaki and rain, as they shove their palms into sky like digging out clouds. They dream of stone while they fist their sleep lids, whispering to Guadalupe, and X is still trying to play Bach as children huddle sleepless in Adelanto or Bedford, Texas, weep like pregnant saguaros while bones bleached and abandoned glitter like snow in desert. X hammers the piano, pounding percussive instrument, while a mother muffles chamomile prayers in fluorescent light and ruby saguaro silence of the jaundiced Sonora desert, sleepless, 3:29 a.m., and I ask, do you think dirt disapproves of anything? This is the last one. You no kidding about checking that screen. I'm like, trying to look at it. Yeah. But thank you all for being here. Appreciate everyone tuning in online, and of course, thanks to Matt. This is the last one. It's a little long, not too long. It's called You Call. You call and tell me about your new life in Koreatown. You mention X, not owning a drafting table. You tell me you finally spoke to your dad. The face he made when you told him you'd be leaving. The face you remember him making when you told him we'd lost. You call and tell me about not visiting Mammoth and only getting one parking space at your new place, but you forget to tell me about your nausea and vomiting, about how tired the meds make you feel, chalk coloring your mouth. I ask if they make you drowsy, but I know. What I really want to know is if you think of me when you close your eyes and bite your tongue. You call and tell me you miss me, as if betrayal wasn't a 4-letter word. As if best friends, cupped palms, drinking hemlock, you rest all your clothes on my side of the bed. You tell me the weight seems familiar, seems like someone sleeping next to you without having to invite anyone. You call and ask if I've heard the new Bright Eyes album. You laugh a little because you know the answer. You call our ottoman a stool and swear it'll really bring your new place together. You tell me you're really finding yourself in places I've vanished. I've been trying to cut all my dead hair off. You tell me, calling from exes. Her home smells like tortillas and cardamom, but I still haven't asked what color her room is. You like secrets. You call your voice home. You think it's kitsch to keep contact. I keep writing letters you'll never read, scribbled cipher in tangerine. I forget to burn them. You're not surprised. The only time you think of me is when you pray. You call and tell me you never pray. You confess in one-liners. You tell me you still wear dresses smeared with subtle forgotten scents. Sometimes you even shade your eyes red before they run smudgy after your cat naps on the leather sofa. You keep telling me. Your call wakes me knee deep inside ruminations. Sometimes hearing your lisp, like most times, still stings yesterday's penumbra of my blue voice. You call and ask if I remember washing your feet. Night you were dancing barefoot and champagne. Your pale skin colored pavement sticky with that night shuffled playlist. You cried handing me soap sitting at the edge of bathtub porcelain stained lavender. Your call paints me nostalgic. Hands clasped, trudging little Tokyo pavement, smell of warm broth, stale urine, green-eyed and wandering. You call and ask, and maybe that's you. You call and ask if I still write poems about you. Your call caresses my aphasia. Your voice, diffracted, swims inside my cornea. You still laugh like you're the only one in a room. You tell me you lit candles for Y, who never got to see your green eyes turn red. You call and tell me she keeps appearing in places she's not. A glimmer whisper kissing your amygdala. Thank you. Do I get to escape the questions, or you got a question for me?
Oh, you get the best ones.
Oh, okay. I kind of want to sit on this. Yeah.
So I'll ask you an initial question, and then I'm thinking we'll have a cool conversation with everybody, Jose and everyone else. I think that
Okay.
I like those because I don't think we should have like I call it a Q&A, but I don't like Q&As because Q&As are very kind of scripted, like question answer. I think of them more as conversations. So wherever it goes, and I think that's cool. But so a question, an actual question I have is, with the book, with the collection, with the readings, is what do you want people to know, or what do you want people to learn, just in general? Like what, like outside of this, what everybody has to go by. What do you want to say?
I think for me, it's really important to be a voice in poetry, to be able to create something that, especially something that like is out there for the world. The book, I mean, I love the book. I loved working on it. It seemed very, I mean, as a lot of it's a lot of work, to write a book, to put it together. And some of the poems that are in this book were written in 2018, 2019. So over 5 years, getting a chance to kind of build a collection of poems has been important for me. But just kind of doing the thing, creating the work. So I don't think that answers your question, Matt, but that's like important to me, and important that like someone from Linwood is able to do this, because where I grew up, I had teachers that told me that I would never amount to anything. I had teachers that didn't believe me, and on the inverse, I definitely had teachers who did, and a lot of them are thanked in the back of the book. But coming from where I come from, and being able to say like, because I saw the art that was created in Linwood, I still see it. But to get it out there in the world, that was definitely important. And to kind of have this physical artifact out there, kind of this labor of love and of art making just to be out there and for folks to hopefully find it, you know, and to resonate with it and to make it their own, because it's no longer my book. You know, I really do feel like it's not. I mean, yeah, my name's on it. You know, it is my book technically, but you know, I want to give it back, you know, to folks. Maybe that kind of answers it a little more.
Absolutely. And I think it's strange, depressingly strange, that a lot of us have parents and grandparents from similar generations and similar experiences, and yet we still experience the same thing from teachers that they experience from their teachers. And a lot of our teachers are them, which is kind of gets me, you know. But I agree. I think our voices are the most powerful thing that we have, and together we can turn them into something phenomenal. And that's what we're doing. Things like this. And so what do you think? Should we do the other speakers? Are you cool with putting the chairs as close together to fit in the frame as possible?
I mean, I'm down if you guys are down. Let's do it.
And while you're doing that, I'll get Jose in there somewhere. It wasn't something I planned, but I bet I could do it.
Yeah, let's do it. That could be fun.
Cool. So everybody watching, check this out. Check this out.
I think maybe
I'll say your face is on the screen, but watch this. I'm gonna put it. I'm gonna make it like you're here. It's gonna be awesome. Okay, I can do it.
No, you get to sit.
I've got coins. I got coins in my pocket. I found, and I shit you not, 27 cents.
Hey, we all fit here. Hey.
Look at that.
Jose's with us too.
Oh my god.
I got it to work.
You want to get closer to the...
Hey, get in.
So.
Should we get the mic, Matt?
Oh yeah. You can. And you know what? Do you want another one?
I think we could share.
Okay. So say you can't. You can't see it, but if you're watching the Zoom, if you're watching the YouTube, I got you in there.
Hold on.
So you're here with all of us. It's freaking awesome.
All right, there you go.
Sounds good.
Okay. So how I like kind of Q&As are not Q&A. So it's not going to be like, hey Michaela, like, you know, what's your process? And you're like, okay, I've answered this question a bajillion times before. Let me just run through the rehearsal. It's more of an artist to artist conversation, the kind of things we don't get to talk about all the time. So for example, if, you know, Jimmy, you're on a press tour and they're asking you questions, they're scripted questions, we can be like, hey, you know, who's the author you hate the most? And you're like, oh, damn, okay, I've been waiting for this one. Right? These kinds of conversations are the conversations where we're just artists here together talking about what drives us, moves us, motivates us, what we hate, the days we wake up and we don't want to wake up. We're just laying there dead. We're slugs, and yet we're still up anyways. We're getting the work done. There's a poem. We know we have to write it because our heart says we have to write it, and we don't want to write it because of where we're going, but we do it anyway. Our hands hurt, our fingers hurt, our computer's dying, and we say, you know what? I'm going to get this done. And so for anybody, the first question really is, what gets you to do what you do?
Who wants to tackle that one?
You're holding the mic, girl.
God, fuck, guy. You know, I was having this thought on the car ride over here with Jimmy, but I was just like, I never thought that I would be doing this, and so it kind of makes me want to do it even more every day because the people I grew up around and the environment that I grew up in, like my grandma, who I talk about all the time, she would paint all the time. And so like the idea of being like a visual artist, very big in my family. Everyone in my family very visually talented. And so like my dad, my aunt, my uncle, they all paint, they all draw, they all cartoon. They're all very gifted in that way. But nobody in my family really writes. And so that's one of those things where it's like I never thought that I would be a writer and be a performer. And frankly, a lot of the people that I grew up with or that are in my family still don't fucking understand what I do. And that makes me want to do it even more because it feels like uncharted territory. It feels like something new and bizarre and strange. And I remember when I was first starting to get into poetry, and one of the really great examples that I saw when I was first getting interested in writing was I was in middle school, and they were showing us videos of like high schoolers, really young teens, doing slam, doing performance poetry, and seeing that and being like, damn, people my age, people who look kind of like me are doing this, was what kind of had inspired me at the time. And so getting to do that now, like, I do kind of hope that other people look at this and go, okay, cool. Yeah. So even if no one I know does this, there's people who are in some way like me saying something that connects to me out there, and maybe I could do this too. So yeah. Please, someone go next.
Awesome. So I'm gonna just I had an idea, and I'm gonna try not to do this often because people don't want to hear me talk all the time, unless you do, which that's cool. But guess what? But yes, art, and so in my research these days is art is everywhere. So physics is art, essays are art, making tables of course is art, all the other stupid shit we do everywhere is art, and yet we think that our family members are not artists, and all of them are artists. My Nina who cuts vegetables and shit on her hands, I'm like, how do you do it? That's art right there. It's all art. My uncle who is a contractor who is humming while he's making concrete, there's still art, and we need to at least in some way appreciate and recognize that the art is human, is us. And so I'm glad that you talk about art in that kind of way. And so part of the way this conversation works is anybody ask anybody anything. That's right. That's the point. So, Jimmy, you could be like, hey, Adam, where'd you get your hat? Right. But the point, and what I hope that we get and that you all get and anybody watching now and in the future and forever, is you get to see the artists, as people, not as the rehearsed performance I need to put on, whatever, all that kind of stuff. Just who we are, how we get to where we are, what got us to where we are. And I think that's what I find valuable. And so people just walked in, so they could ask questions too. Woo. And you could ask them. You could be like, hey, it's 8:12. But yeah, if you need a question or if you want to respond to anything, my other question that I always ask is, are you concerned, maybe not concerned, are you hesitant sometimes to read certain pieces, but you understand how important they are to be read?
Oh, that's a tough one for me. But I did want to say, in terms of making art, connecting it to the world, right? Our environment. I mean, I'm with you, Matt. Like I that's how I see art. I see it everywhere. In the mundane, in the what is visual art or what is music, but also in what maybe doesn't get recognized immediately as art. So I think I always try to like operate in that realm, and I think like Michaela was saying, like just being inspired by other art, right? Whether it's a film, whether it's music. I mean, I'm always opening up the page in that way, trying to like build on a conversation, because a blank page is a very scary thing. So, having something, right? Whether it's a song lyric, whether it's a photograph that really struck you, whether it's a movie that's really resonating with you, and bringing that in to maybe start some writing, or even just to kind of consider what might happen on the page. I think that I always try to operate in that way. But what poems to read when, and I mean that's for y'all.
I think it's tricky, especially with family, especially if they're in the room and you're like, and I have to be like, okay, just pretend they're not there, because they're important to me. And I'm like, I really loved how I wrote it, and I'm like, I don't care what they say or think, but I do. Like I remember like what the poem I wrote about my dad, I sent it to him. I was like, hey, I'm like, it got published in the Anna, like so cool. And he was like, oh, I've never read it before. And I was like, okay, I'll send it to you. Silence. And I was like, cool. Love this for me. And then I was like, so how'd you think about it, like, in person? He was like, it was cool. And I was like, okay, cool. So that's always sometimes a tricky thing when you're talking about family and your experience of your family and how their experiences of how of their own how they see how our family is very different, which is always kind of fun to piece together, and how they experience, I think, community in general, I feel like. So yeah.
Jose, do you wanna drop in?
Yeah, I think for me, initially when I started writing, a lot of my poetry was based on the news. At the time, it was a SB 1070, and the border was kind of the first issue. I saw a professor from my UC Berkeley days. He posted an article on the border. This is like 2010, and right away when I read the article, I wanted to write a poem about the border and just sort of deconstruct how some of the injustices, and so initially I was writing a lot of personal, political, protest poetry, specifically to SB 1070. I was working with a group called Poets Responding to SB 1070, and so I was really just if you see my books, the first half is usually, or the first sections are usually linear verse, autobiographical, about being first gen Mexican American and growing up in Southern California. And then the second half tends to be more prose poetry, more experimental, some absurdist, surrealist tendencies, and also mixing in Mexican imagery and Mexican American settings and environments, and so it's really just an eclectic mix, I think, in terms of what inspires me. It can be the mundane, right? It can be our ancestors, our parents, our family, our friends, local, place, image, and then it could be more language-based, experimental, prose poetry as well, like I said. So sometimes I feel like, okay, I'm just going to go straight forward and ode to the melting of ice, right? This is really pissing me off. I want to write about it and tell these people how awful they are in an artistic way. And then sometimes it's like, I kind of want to escape into the dream world, lean on dream logic and world building and sort of create another realm, not really rooted necessarily in reality. So that's kind of my dual interest, is the autobiographical and then the surreal. And sometimes they mix, kind of like Jimmy's work, very eclectic, right? Janice's work, everybody who read here is really experimental and the real, and following the poem. I don't have a set agenda, always what I want to write. It's usually just I'm open to discovery, spontaneity, and inspiration. Actually, but lately, that's kind of how I was for the past, in the first 10 years or so of writing. And the past couple years, I've been teaching more generative workshops. And so I've been really writing with my writing workshop students, in the sense of giving them prompts and then responding to the prompts myself, which has led to really a lot of writing. And because I'm on the clock and I'm getting paid for it, so it's kind of like, it's kind of the best of both worlds. But so that's kind of my background and my experience with it.
Want to point something out. I don't, Matt, this is the way you have Jose like on the screen, and like is at like the perfect angle, so that like it's kind of like Saint Jose, like up on the corner and stuff. I love it. So yeah, so that's what's up. I think I'm trying to like see if I can remember like all the questions that were just posed to us. Michaela had pointed out something that really resonated with me in terms of you sharing a poem with your dad. And I remember when I gave like my books to my dad, and then my dad kind of like, he read them and then he was like, that's nice. Like, kind of like it was the thing of like, he was stoked that I had I had books published, and he was like, yeah, that's great. But he's like, I gotta sit down and actually talk to you about this, because he's like, I can't make heads or tails of this stuff. But I do have I have a manuscript that entirely deals with my mom's death, and that's gonna be something that I have been thinking about a lot, is reading that in the presence of family members. Maybe not even reading it in their presence, but just the possibility of them reading the work and it creating some type of friction, or trying to navigate difficult feelings and stuff that might arise because of memories that might be conjured up. All of those things are definitely factors, but it's part and parcel of kind of what we do. And I mean, that work took me 10 years to really generate. I mean, it started one place, and then is kind of morphed into something else. And that's something that I think has been, it's one of the great, things about writing poetry is that we do glean so much from our immediate environment, but also from all these different sources of stimulation, movies, music, sometimes and as Jose had pointed out, Jimmy, everybody here, that sometimes it's the mundane aspects of our life too. I was at work just yesterday, and I was thumbing through an edition of poetry, and there was a Portuguese poet who, unfortunately, I don't remember their name, but I remember reading it, and just all of a sudden it just kind of one of those weird light bulb moments and stuff, where it just language starts kind of turning on, and I'm standing under these sterile lights in my cubicle and stuff, and it's just those kind of moments of shine, those moments of glimmer and stuff that kind of happen in these very random places. So
I will say, on the note of reading poems about your family, to your family, around your family, shout out to one of our guests at Beyond Baroque who met my father recently and said, "Oh, I've heard such beautiful poetry about you." And my dad was like, "No, what could that possibly mean?" But a couple of years ago, I put out a book called Flash Photography, and it deals a lot with the death of my grandparents, the death of my little sister, and also just the beginning part of the estrangement that my father and I underwent, that we've only recently been consistently back in each other's lives again. And he had never read it, and he kind of sort of didn't know it came out because he just wasn't in my life actively at the time of me being the Youth Poet Laureate of Ventura County and starting to really get into poetry. He just wasn't around. And so the last year, he has not only read the entire thing, but also multiple of his friends and our family has read the entire thing. And I think he's gotten chewed out 6 or 7 times. But it has been really wonderful in terms of us getting to have some harder conversations together and also kind of reach some peace together. So I think one of the poems I read earlier today, I think that's probably the nicest thing I've written about my dad in a long time, and I'm hoping the work continues to lend itself to that versus where I was when I was writing 5 or 6 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah, the question of what to read in front of who, or I mean that's I mean I definitely struggle with that. I think the what I read today, I was telling Jenna oh, I've been in a funk, so I'm gonna read some funk ass poems. and so I did read maybe some of the saddest stuff in here, and I also read today pieces that I don't normally read. So I think I think Jose might have mentioned this earlier too, but being in the setting. Some of y'all also alluded to this, like being in the setting and like figuring it out. Sometimes that's, and today that was it for me. And kind of feeling comfortable enough to share some of these more intimate pieces. But I will say, like, definitely, I encourage all of us to like write that, and because if it's making us uncomfortable, it's worth a lot. It's worth a lot, not just for ourselves, but for hopefully others. And it probably means it's pretty good, if it's making us feel uncomfortable. And so I think it is, we should lean into those uncomfortable moments in our writing, and still kind of push the work out. But yeah, it's tricky for sure. Yeah.
So I have a question for everyone, including Jose. I know you said that your book is no longer yours. When you first write, do you first write for yourself, or do you first write with the intention of someone's going to read this, or with an audience in mind?
That's a good question. I think I do write for myself. I think always. Yeah, I guess that's it, Next.
I've referred to my writing as incredibly selfish many times. But a couple of years ago, when I was writing about like my gender as like a gender fluid, androgynous at times person, that was like one of my favorite lines that I wrote while writing about a friend of mine's like gender nonconformity. Was just like, everything I write about you comes back to myself. Like everything I'm writing about other people and the way that I'm analyzing them and breaking apart our relationship or their appearance or the way they make me feel, it all comes back to me. And so it's so selfish, but it's also on the flip side kind of trippy when like I've read poems about like stories that like my grandma has told me or like certain things, and people will like pick up on like a certain line and they'll go, that is what I connected with. And it's just like something that I would have thought was like a throwaway detail or something that makes perfect sense to me one way, someone else will hear, and then all of a sudden they're seeing the poem about themselves, and it's not about me anymore as the writer or as the speaker. Now it's about them, now it's about their experience, and that's the exciting part about performing and about putting it out into the world and letting go of it.
Yeah. I think that like Jimmy, I write from a very, I don't want to call it like selfish, but like, but like a very kind of like self-focused, self-centered sometimes like place. But the reason that what I'm trying to do is, and this is probably the challenge of most writers, is trying to externalize an internal world and giving someone a lens into like how you see the world and how you relate to the world, and so that's where it starts from for me. Is the writing process is a very specific reflection of my own experience and relationship with the world. The editing process is the process by which I'm trying to kind of mold things in such a way that I can give someone an avenue to come in. And my work's not like, it's not easy. Like I don't I'll be the first to admit that. I mean, it's very nonlinear and it's kind of all over the place and stuff. But like Jenna pointed out, like I think that there are elements that people tend to identify with. And if someone can take an element, a line, just a fragment from a poem and stuff, and they're able to find something to like identify with, and I feel like the poems accomplished a lot in being able to establish a connection with someone. And I'm always surprised as to like what people's reactions will be. I have there's a great poet, Steve Farmer, and I remember reading and I read, I was reading these poems and I'm like sitting there, I'm like, man, these are so dark. Like, like living my best goth life, like up here, like, kind of reading these things. And he came up after the reading and he was like, "Those were hilarious." He's like, "You're really funny." And I was like, "Really?" Like, I was like, "I'm funny?" Like, but he found like a lot of these like comedic elements that were in there, you know. Do I feel like I write funny poems? Absolutely not. And I will say, like, anyone who's able to incorporate humor into their work, like, hats off, because that shit is really hard. But I definitely feel like there's there's something to be said about being able to apply that subjective lens to someone's own reading experience and stuff, and how they respond, and that's what I love about it. Jose, what do you got for us?
Yeah, great question, great answers. I write mostly for the money, and no, I'm just kidding. The money, but no, mostly when I first started writing, I was really into like rock and roll, underground hip hop, and I wanted to be a musician in a band. A lot of my friends were in bands or underground hip hop, but I didn't really play instruments. So I feel like poetry was a way for me to be an artist, and I always wanted to be an artist, right? My friends were painters, graffiti artists, and I couldn't paint, but I wanted to be an artist. And when I found poetry and writing, I felt like I was achieving who I wanted to be all my life, an artist, a writer, and a teacher. And for me, it is it started off very personal and just wanting to please my own interests and but then later, I was also interested in community and inspiring other Latino writers and maybe writers who had similar background as me in terms of um, Mexican American background and but also in conversation with a lot of my favorite artists. I always think like it would be an honor for me to ever be compared to some of my favorite writers like Alberto Rios and James Tate and like to me that would be a great honor to ever hear anyone mention my name with some of those people that I idolize, and not in a like an artistic way idolize, right? Like I just really think their writing to me is what I think I would want to write like writing that kind of makes you jealous that you wish you wrote it, right? Like to me, I want other people to feel that way about my writing too. And it's not really for vain reasons. It's just because I feel fulfilled, like when somebody tells me, oh, or if I feel that I'm in a conversation with someone like Rios or Limon and Coral and writers that I've grew up studying in conversations with in my room at the library, even online. I met some of them, in person too. So I just feel there's also lineage as well. I grew up reading Francisco X Alarcon, Alurista, Coral, as I mentioned, Rios, and I kind of want to create my own voice in this community, in this lineage, but we have to make it our own, right? And then so it's also important for me to inspire other writers, hopefully in that same way that I was inspired. And I think so. It just evolves over time, in terms of why I write. I think when I first started writing, I was too shy to ask someone out, and I started writing love sonnets, like in the style of Petrarch. So it was very archaic, when I first started writing, going to the library reading Petrarch. So it was very like thou and Shakespearean and Old English, and then I started writing about politics with SB 1070 as I mentioned, and then prose poetry really spoke to me with the third person, and it was mentioned about family and stuff like that. I think initially I just wanted to get it out there. Growing up, my brothers were in some gangs, and it kind of affected me, and we had to move around, and we left where I originally lived, and it really affected me, and I never talked about it. The basketball court that I grew up in, I could no longer go there for various reasons, and I feel like writing it was a way for me to release and deal with that trauma. But now that I've done it, it's kind of like I don't want to talk about that much anymore. Like put my family on blast and tell all the like all the personal stories. I feel like I've done it already, and I'm not gonna really dwell on that so much. So now I've been leaning more to third person, and the masquerade, and if I'm feeling something, I could go in there with the third person persona as opposed to always confessional I. Um, but like I said, it depends because sometimes I do still crave the I and the first person. So it just depends. I follow the poem, the muse of the day, and I tend to not really have projects like that I map out like mathematics or scientific equations. I tend to lean into spontaneity, discovery, improvisation, inspiration, and that's all based on the years of reading. So you do all the reading so that when you're in the moment of inspiration, you can have all the craft in consideration as well.
I love there's something about the commonality that comes from conversations like this. So for example, like I was fortunate enough to publish some of Jose's work in the journal that I ran, and one of the wonderful things that I got to do is at the time hosted a podcast. Jose was on it. We got to talk about kind of like our shared appreciation for hip hop and stuff, and that's where I grew up. I'm listening to Jose talk about this. I mean, I started writing poems because I was like, oh, girls might be interested in me if I do this. And but then it shifted, and as my political lens shifted and expanded beyond where I lived, and I was listening to not only hip hop but a lot of like hardcore punk, and grew up on like Black Flag and Circle Jerks and like kind of like the old stuff, and that influenced my writing. And so it having these conversations illuminates so much that we have in terms of these commonalities. And I guess a question that I'll pose to everyone is how do you think the poet is supposed to, like, what is the poet's role within community? And as a member of that community, what is our responsibility and obligation to continuing to support the community, continuing to like get the community to grow?
That's a really good question, Adam. Dang, yeah. I'm like, huh? Well, I think the role of the poet in community is I hope to inspire, and that's the angle that I come from. I mean, when I say like, oh, I'm writing for myself, like I think of it as less selfish but more in community. Like I'm writing for someone, for myself, but I'm really hoping that someone finds it, and someone resonates with it, and that the poem or the book is theirs, right? And in that way. So I love poetry, and for me, that's why it's like, it's no longer mine. Like someone go find it. Right. And so to inspire others to love poetry, to love the spoken, the written word, literature, all the arts, like that I feel is the role of the poet in community, and then to band together when we need to band together for something other than inspiration. But maybe that's where it starts, is to inspire the future generation of writers. Yeah.
I guess the first word that came to mind was to witness. And I think it's like, wow, you really can write this scene out. And to have someone connect with that is really cool. And I feel like that's the community aspect of like, this is what I've witnessed. And it's like, oh, I hear you. I'm with you. And so, yeah, that's what I think about the role of the poet and being with community, and like we can share this, or we can understand it, or we can look at it differently, and to see how they've witnessed it's the same scene maybe, and how we can also work together within that.
I love poetry. I love being a poet, and I think part of that love is that like poetry really opens doors. I think a couple of people have mentioned wanting to be a different type of artist and ending up in poetry. My educational background, like my formal education, is in recreation, tourism management, and sustainability. I have a bachelor's of science. But I love poetry, and I think that's the beautiful thing about poetry is you can really set your own course for how you want to study it, how you want to get into it, how you want to show up for other poets, and how you want to show up for the people that you fucking love and appreciate. I'm looking at you, Jose, with my $10 poetry magazine subscription as a child that I had. But like, yeah, like I love that it's all about letting people in. Like that's in a lot of ways poetry is so intimate because we're letting people into our minds. And in one of the great ways that our community operates is you show up to open mics, you show up to other people's readings, you show up to community spaces like this, and poetry really is just opening doors and holding space for people and giving that time and that energy and that coming together. And you can have like a million amazing degrees in poetry and study it like thoroughly, and you can just kind of like pick it up and start to fall in love with it, and you're all still in the same community. Yeah. And this isn't to diss anyone. I hate gatekeepy people, and I hate when people are like, oh, well, you didn't go here, you didn't go there, or you didn't read this, or you didn't study that. That's not what poetry's about, and that's not what the community's about. And it's really about opening up yourself and giving people the opportunity to open to you, and that's what the community really is. And it's spaces like this, and I'm really blessed that I get to work with Jimmy at Beyond Baroque, and that we get to go to so many cool places and see so many cool people doing amazing stuff and holding that space for other people.
I'm just going to quickly say, because I just thought of it, opening up space. That's what Gabrielle Seville taught me at the California Institute of the Arts. And that's her, like, that's how she leads, that's how she teaches, that's how she enters a room. It's in her bio, like she works to open up space, and I resonate with that so much, and I strive to do that. So I think in writing for ourselves, for our community, and doing this work, hopefully we're doing that. We're opening up space for others. But you just reminded me when you were talking. Jose, you want to add anything?
Yeah, I think again, great question. I think for me, it's evolved over the years, and I don't think there's a one size fits all in terms of all poets should do this or all poets shouldn't do that. I think there's some people who are more social and more activist minded. There's some people who are more introverted and disabled and social anxiety. So there's everything. I think I hear a lot of the poets who are more on the scene active. I feel they're very judgmental for poets who are not always at all the readings. For some people, it's very difficult to even attend one reading every 6 months because of various, disabilities and mental health issues and things like that. But I think what I personally do in terms of, I was dealing with social anxiety more when I was younger. I had to sort of break out of that shell through teaching. Initially, I was terrified of teaching. And I was finally asked by a magazine to teach a workshop. And I just told myself, oh, I'm going to be so anxious. And I'd never taught before. And finally, I needed the money. So I said, okay, I'll do it. And like literally, it was like $1,000 or something like that. And I told myself, if you can publish a poem in the Yale Review, you can teach a intro to prose poetry workshop. So for me, the publication was a form of like validation in the sense that I was not teaching a lot, when I was younger due to anxiety. And I never really saw teachers who looked like me. Growing up, most of my teachers were white, female teachers. My sister was the first Latina teacher that I've had. and when she substituted in my class. Um, so when I finally did that, I told myself that the publications kind of gave me some confidence to face it. And the first time I did it, it was terrifying, and I was very anxious. But I got over it, and I got better each time.
Yeah.
Um, so for me, it's something that has evolved over time. That now, maybe if I'm not the best with like in person meetings and readings, I will, mentor 5 writers online and edit their work and have conversations with them about, what they could be reading and craft elements and some of my workshops often are 50% discount for writers facing economic hardship. And so I think there's different ways to be inclusive, and sometimes community can also be very like chismoso. There's a lot of like toxic community that very judgmental and very competitive, right, and things like that. So I think I come off as very competitive because I publish a lot, but really that's like the furthest thing that I am. If anybody knows me, like it's just really not who I am at all. But I just happen to write kind of fast. My aesthetic is stripped down, and conversational that really it can inspire work in a quick manner. But so me, I don't think there's a one size fits all, and sometimes we can go back and learn. I've burned bridges in my past, and I try to encourage people to not do that. When they're to younger writers, because I've been there when you're younger and you feel like a rock star and you just don't give a shit. But it can come back to bite you. So I think what I do is I try to teach writers or at least show examples of what I've learned throughout my process so that other people don't make the same mistakes that I made in my teaching, in my mentoring, so that or I'll give advice in terms of like, oh, this magazine really likes prose poems, and this magazine really likes politically engaged work. So I think using what we learn um, to give people hopefully some hope or some advice, because initially when I first started writing, I'm not gonna lie, I was competitive. I was competitive in the sense that like I wasn't gonna share everything that I learned. And then after a while, you're in every goddamn magazine. I'm like, I don't even care anymore. You know what I mean? Like, this is what I did. This is what I did. Submit here. And then I started like retweeting all the submission opportunities, because once you get in there, you want other people to experience what gave you happiness, and identity and purpose. So that's kind of what how it was for me, is that it rescued me and it saved me probably from death, to be honest with you, so that I want other people to have similar purpose and meaning. So now I'm just as happy like when writers and my workshops get published, and I feel like I'm getting published in the sense of I'm so proud. And but not that it's just about publication. I always say it's also just about putting your best foot forward with the piece, and but anyways, for me it's evolved over time, and always it's kind of like martial arts or Buddhism, right? Like it's something sacred that you don't want to exploit it. You know what I mean? So I think it's like religion to me, poetry that passes on, and I would say that's how I view it, kind of like a religion. Yeah.
Do we want to open it up to? I know Brenda's got a. You got a mic, Brenda?
Yeah. Okay. So this is. Oh my gosh. This. Okay. So yes to everything, and also, I have a fourth microphone. Wait, one. The third microphone is the guitar microphone. But I have a fourth microphone that I have not used. I don't think ever. Maybe there's a video somewhere, but I'm gonna push a button, and we're gonna find out. And it's a question from the audience, which is like awesome. Okay.
Is this the fourth microphone?
I think so.
Is it on? Is this thing on?
It is on. Okay, do it again.
Okay.
I have a question for the poet of the hour,
Woo.
and then a secondary question for everyone on the panel. The title, Zirconium Ash. I don't have the book yet, so I don't know where the title came from. So I wonder if you could speak to the title, how you landed on that, and then question for the panelists after, because some of you talked about, you had some very provocative titles, or maybe like struggle with the title. So I wonder how you land on titling your poetry.
That's a good question, Brenda. Thank you. So Zirconium Ash was really another book. It was written in grad school. It was my thesis. But even when I turned that in, it was like 2 or 3 other projects too. So it was like this big kind of monster. And when I got word that it would be published, and when we were kind of inching towards that, we had a deadline or whatever. We had, I think, 2-3 years to go through that process, because they just told me really early. You know, I knew I wanted to change the title, because the original manuscript was titled Lavender Asphalt Sempasuchi Lash. And that line still gets, it still like recurs in the book. And we use Sempasuchi Lash as a section in the book. So it's all of that's still kind of preserved. But I knew that it had morphed into something else, and I wanted to call it something else. And I wanted it to be maybe a little tighter and a little bit more accessible to folks, because I knew that if I went to certain places, they were going to butcher Sempasuchi. And I already was kind of, working in the industry. I know how that goes, and I knew that was going to happen. And so I wanted something a little more accessible, but still like weird and unusual. So the, Sempasuchi Lash, that's like I said, a refrain in the book, but Zirconium Ash is also a refrain. Not so much of a refrain, but it does get mentioned. So it's a line in the book. And how we landed on that, me and my editor, we knew we wanted to change the title, and we just had like 2 pages of titles. And we were like going through that. And yeah, and I thought it was going to be called something else. I won't say what it's going to be called, because I kind of like those titles that we had in mind, and something might happen there. But ultimately, we landed with Zirconium Ash, and it felt right. And I think for me, I'm very lucky that my editor has been a mentor of mine. So like, she knows my work. She's been writing with me since like 2019. So like, when we both agreed on this, it felt good. Like, yep, this is it. So yeah, it's a line in the book. It's in there. It's kind of deep towards the back. So it's one of those kind of aha moments in film where you kind of see the line appear somewhere in the film. But it's in there. But yeah, it's not easy. It's not easy. I had like 2 pages to like work with. Yeah. But I'm glad that it is what it's called. Yeah. Yeah. Very happy with it. Anybody want to answer?
I don't think too much about titles. I kind of just, whatever it seems right, it just seems right. I know some people are like, it's so hard to title a poem, which I'm like, yeah, it is. But I don't know, but I feel like I try not to think too much about it. So like, whatever it is, I'm like, I like that. Let's go in there. That's it. Solid. And then move on.
Anybody?
For me, I have a similar process where I'm extricating a line that speaks to me from a poem. So for like compunctions and thefts, it's like there's this idea, it's the tension that exists between the 2 words and stuff, and that's the thing that kind of like drives that particular book in the momentum that goes, when I read it and stuff, like through each of the lines. Same thing with Sham Tapestry. I've had, I can't remember, I think it was my first book, The Scales. It was titled something else, and I think it involved like it had the word rocks in it and something like that. And my friend was like, yeah, you don't want that to be like Adam Stutz's Rocks. And I was like, because that just the connotations, like all the things and stuff. So it ended up being a different like, you know, title of a poem, like within the larger work, you know, that I ended up like kind of lining up on. But yeah, for me, it's like it's a lot of times like the titles of the individual poems. I mean, the titles of the books, they really are like born out of lines. And I like when I'm reading, I like kind of like where it's not, you know, immediately clear where the title comes from. I like doing that whole like reading through the book and then being like, oh, there's the title, like, you know, and just kind of having that like aha moment. And but then thinking about like, okay, well, why does that line in particular speak to the larger body of work? Like, what is the thing? Like, what's the relevance right there? So like that's how I come by it, like those things. Jose, what you got?
Yeah, great question. I think for me, it is kind of like Michaela saying, like it's kind of organic, intuitive. Try not to overthink it initially in terms of most of my titles, but sometimes I'll go for like something that is hyperbole and something that is exaggerated, that is very like loud and in your face, confrontational, unapologetic, and more vibrant. And then sometimes I'll go more understated, where it's more subtle, delicate, um, maybe emotive, um, uh, reticent, and sometimes they're more straightforward, right? Like um, the artist or the tree, very, very stripped down, bare. So it varies for me. In terms of collections, Bad Mexican, Bad American originally was called The Ventriloquist. And no, The Magician, sorry, The Magician. Ventriloquist was my MFA thesis. Um, so I had The Magician, and and then it was more like an artistic approach to the manuscript, thinking of like one poem that kind of represented the whole aesthetic, right? Like, okay, the magician, this book is going to be, magical and take you out of reality, but then I thought, well, the first half is very autobiographical, and it was split with, as I mentioned, those aesthetics. So I thought about the idea of Bad Mexican, Bad American. I just thought that it represented really where I was in terms of, not Mexican enough for Mexicans, not American enough for Americans, ni de aquí, ni de allá, the whole, other split dynamic and experience. So I tweeted it out. I said, I'm thinking of changing my collection from The Magician to Bad Mexican, Bad American. What do you guys think? And then right away, like Jose Olivares, Eduardo Corral, they're like, oh yeah, Bad Mexican, Bad American is perfect. So I was like, okay, they've spoken. And no, but like it was literally like hundreds of people that liked that idea. So I kind of said, initially I felt like the artist in me wants the magician, but the more like popular title would be Bad Mexican, Bad American, and eventually I said, you know what, just go with what sounds like better for this one, and you can go back and have your weird artsy titles for your next books. And that's what I did because my next book is called New Year's Eve at the Museum of Somber Paintings. So imagine librarians typing that in. That's going to be annoying. Um, so sometimes like I write a piece and I know that the title and the way that the work is kind of dynamic in the sense that it can speak for like a range of aesthetics. Um, like right now, I have another one called The Mask of Dahlias. And to me, I like it because it has the surrealism, but the Mexican imagery with the dahlia being, the Mexican um, flower, national flower. So sometimes I'll lean toward like kind of artsy titles and sometimes more social realist titles like Bad Mexican, Bad American, and kind of trying to figure out what I'm gonna go with in terms of those dual aesthetics. And like I was saying, intuitively, organically is usually the process, especially for like individual poems.
silly long story that I think is probably better over dinner. I'm not hungry at all. But for the most part, when I'm writing poems, if the title doesn't come to me right away, or if it's not part of a series, because I've been writing a lot of poetry that falls into one of a handful of series that I've been tinkering with and playing with and doing that sort of thing. Yeah, if it doesn't come right away and if the poem doesn't jump off from that point, it just kind of comes as I'm like, what the hell do I call this thing? I read a poem today that I wasn't quite sure about the title because I was going to call it something else, and then it sounded way too much like something else I read, and then I went back and forth, and then I was like, what do I not hate? Because a lot of my writing ends up being, what do I not hate about this piece? And then that if it doesn't come right away, if it's not part of a series, and if I hated the first one, it just becomes whatever I don't hate about the poem. That becomes the title.
Oh, I was gonna say for my latest collection, Portrait of the Artist as a Brown Man. Initially, I was listening to in undergrad, Talib Kweli, where he has a song where he says, "It was a portrait of the artist as a brown man." No, sorry, he says it was a portrait of the artist as a young man. And then I realized that was a book later from Joyce, and I always said I would like to write that title, but brown man, not young man, but of a brown man, you know. And I said, I'm going to put that, you know, in the memory bank. And one day when I have a collection, um, hopefully I can write a poem about it. And that's what I did. And it was written about writing a poem at the library in Cerritos Library, which is like an upper middle class neighborhood. And when I was writing the poem, I after I wrote a poem that got published in The Nation, um, a white lady told me, "Where's the trash at?" And I was like, "What are you talking about?" And I realized she thought I was a janitor. So I just kind of felt like that was a way that I was seen, you know, by the lady. So, and it was kind of like a way for me to show that as Latino artists, we often have political, social climates as well that we're aware of. We can't exclusively be artists for art's sake, you know. And I think Leroy Jones, Mehdi Baraka had a similar um, dual influence where writing about, you know, Black issues in the Nam era, and then also being avant-garde and interested in language poetry. And so I think there's always that balance, and sometimes they're like completely opposite poems, like Ode to My Sister Letty, which is like very like autobiographical, and then a prose poem like The Centaur, which is very, you know, interested in the fable and the imaginative. And sometimes they kind of mix in the middle, like my poem The Jaguar, which has surreal elements but like mundane Southeast LA settings, you know. So just a matter of following intuitively, as I said, intuitively organic always.
Thank you. I'm gonna jump in real quickly because oh my gosh, this is awesome for me. You know, I gotta hear this is cool. I gotta sit here. I added blue and highlights, normally red. Just saying. But what all of you have been talking about as far as language and voice and community and all these things, there's something that I've been researching lately called they call it the white listening subject, which is something I never really thought of. But what it is basically we speak based on who listens, as opposed to we are speaking because we are speaking, and it's our voice. And so like Genesis said, and Michaela said, witness and you know, fuck the gatekeepers and all these different things, and these spaces are ours. And what this writing does and what this art does is it cements and really solidifies this is where we are. This is who we are. This is where we're from. This is our voices. This is what we're doing. It doesn't matter who's listening. It's who's speaking. Who is the person on the microphone? Give us the fucking microphone, right? And so these spaces, I think, are fantastic and important. And I hope that we can have more of these types of things. And this is one of my more fun reading groups I've been a part of. I don't know, because it's like here, you know. I don't know. Perhaps, but the voice aspect of it, all of our voices, regardless of where they're from, how old we are, how young we are, the experiences we have or we don't have, the books we have or the books we don't have, the publications we have or we don't have, the slam poetry memorizations we have or we don't have, whether we read it from our phone, it doesn't matter. It's our voice and it's out. And that's what we're doing. And I apologize for anyone who's cold in here. But like if it's not cold, I suffocate. So I'd rather you cold than me suffocate. But so with that fourth microphone that works, does any other person have a question in the audience? All right, go ahead.
Is it on? Yeah. I guess I'm gonna take it back to basics. This is a question for everybody on the panel. What is everyone's method in tackling or battling writer's block into in a way where you're not constantly writing the same thing over and over, which I struggle with sometimes. So I just want to ask, like methods or like what are things that you guys do to get away from that and actually start piecing together coherent sentences that make.
Yeah, it's a really good question. I'll start since I have the mic, but I don't know. I don't have a solid writing practice. I wish I did. I wish I had like a set time on a set day or, but I don't. So a lot of the writing that I do happens either really early in the morning or really late at night when I can squeeze it in. And I know we were talking about this kind of recently, a few months ago, but yeah, for me, because I have such a I think we all have crazy lives and schedules, but because I don't have a practice, I'm always just trying to write something down and make it like way less precious than whatever a poem is. And so whenever I can write just a few lines down, put a couple words on the page. And when I say the page, I really mean like, yeah, on the page, but also like on a voice memo or even like on a note, or even if it's a photo, because I believe everything is a poem. So even that photo that I might be taking, maybe that's like the entryway into something bigger when I have the time to really kind of unpack all of those little scraps and notes. Because I have all I'm a crazy bag lady. I have like a lot of paper and notes everywhere. And sometimes, you take it out and you kind of start to piece things together that way. And then that also kind of helps. I think it helps with the writer's block, but also it helps with like not starting on a blank page. Because that for sure is the enemy. Like that's scary. So when you have even just a line just to base something out of like that's a happiness, I think.
I had a teacher who didn't believe in writer's block, but he also had a practice where he woke up at 4 or 5 in the morning, wrote for an hour or two before he went to work. And to me, that doesn't work. I'm more like you. I'm very sporadic. I just, I'm like, okay, I'm going to write and you write. And I think a part of it is being intentional. And I think once you're in that headspace what really helps too is also, I feel like picking up your favorite poetry book, read from that as inspiration to jump off from, if that makes sense. So it's like, wow, I really like this line. I'm going to write about that line and what comes up from that line. So I think that has really helped me when it's like, I'm just kind of like, I don't know, man. I wrote all my good stuff and now I'm like, there's nothing else. But I think there's like, okay, well, you could always read someone else's work and that could also spring up new work. And that's, I feel like creates a community, creates, conversation with other pieces and you can talk about it. And then, I don't know, send that writer that poem. Like, hey, your poem inspired this poem. What you think about that? And then, I don't know. So I think that's what's really cool about it. So, but yeah, I think having a practice is cool. I think being intentional is cool. I think it's what every writer is different and what works for them. But yeah, I think it's just keep writing, keep doing the work and something will come of it. So.
We were talking about this the other day. Yeah. yeah, as a multidisciplinary artist, if I can't write, then I sketch. If I can't sketch, then I paint. If I can't paint, then I collage. If I can't collage, then I dance. If I can't dance, I run. One of the cool things I learned in my favorite class that I took in college, which was wilderness literature, which was all about how people have always tried to capture our relationship with nature through literature, through the word. We looked at all kinds of different stuff. It was an amazing class. It was my favorite class. It was the only writing class I took in college, so I loved every second. But we talked about how there are certain types of therapy that are focused on getting people in nature, because the parts of the brain where depression, and when you're undergoing active depression, when you're undergoing active anxiety, there's a lot of activity in certain parts of the brain. And if you spend anywhere from 1 to 2 hours in nature at different intervals, the activity decreases. And I think that with writer's block, with a lot of things that kind of stunt our ability to write, a lot of it is anxiety, a lot of it's that blank page, that like, oh, what am I doing wrong? And so if the art that I'm making at home is pissing me off and I'm not quite doing what I want to be doing and I keep hitting a wall, then I just go out into the world. And I'm super blessed. I'm from Oxnard. I'm like a jog away from the beach, or I can go into the mountains. But yeah, I just do whatever it is that takes me out of my head and back into my body until I can write again. And on the note of like not writing something that's like the same every time, that's one of the really wonderful things about like getting out of your head and getting back into your body, is when you are hearing the world versus when you're seeing the world, when you're touching the world, when you're smelling the world, when you're tasting the world, when you're pissed at the world, when you're sad about the world, when you're feeling in all of the different dimensions of the way that you exist in the world. That kind of helps you key into different things and allows you to write from different perspectives. So I got to get out of the house. That's my big thing, is I'm like, if I hate what I'm doing, I got to get out of the house.
I think so. I guess I want to address like two things. So during the pandemic, or the height of the pandemic, like I didn't write for like the better part of like 2 years. Like I really struggled, and that was primarily due to, you know, variety of things going on, personal stuff, a lot of like emotional things that were like happening, and I think that you have to pay yourself some kindness sometimes when, you know, if your brain, your heart, whatever is going on in your life and stuff it's not there, like that's okay. Like sometimes you just gotta let it be, and like it'll come. Like it's one of those things that eventually it will start to manifest, and sometimes it will start to manifest differently. And that's kind of where, you know, I didn't really write, but then like I was still trying to read. I was still trying to like take in, you know, media and like trying to engage in some ways. I was doing these things where I was like, I would take my camera and just record these short videos of like things. For example, there was a Santa Ana and wind was going through the trees, and it was causing the sunlight to like kind of model in this weird way, and the sounds and everything like that. So I just recorded that, and I just had that on my phone, and that, you know, I was able to come back to that and be like, oh, like this is weird. Why did I, you know? And then that kind of evolved from there. And so in terms of like practical things, like, I mean, like so many of us, we have to write when we can. Like I have like my thing, like I have a 9 to 5 during the week. So the weekends, like my time in the mornings and stuff is sacred for me. Like that, like kind of 4-hour window, like get up, get out to a coffee shop, you know, like that is a certain type of noise that like works for me and stuff. I cannot write at home for whatever reason, because I have a, you know, very rambunctious small dog that likes to just be up in my grill. And so sometimes I will set constraints for myself I'll set a clock for 30 minutes, and like I have to do that because I need the pressure of not trying to edit myself as I'm writing. I'm just trying to write and just trying to let whatever it is going on in my head. And I have notebooks. 99% of that shit is never gonna see the light of day and stuff. Like, but I may be able to pull a line or a word or whatever out. And that will eventually start to like kind of mold into something. And like the writing process for me really is during the editorial process. Like that's when writing really happens. The other thing is like sometimes I'm not a formalist, but I love writing pantoums because the form, A, it's easy, and B, it's like the repetition and kind of like the musicality of the lines. There's not a lot of formal constraints other than the repetition and how the lines unfold, and it can just keep kind of going on and on and on and on, and it's fun. It's an interesting formal constraint. So like I have a bunch of pantoums. Again, I'm probably never gonna I don't know if I'll ever do anything with them, but they've helped me like kind of come out of myself, and like that, you know, and by doing that, then I'm able to be like, all right, like I was able to play a little bit and stuff, and then like I'm able to walk away from that feeling like, okay, like the gratification of like, you know, I was able to put pen to paper. Last thing I'll say is that I have a friend, poet, who's also a mentor, and Mark Wallace, great poet, great novelist, and you know, I remember I was talking to him one day, and I was like, yeah, man, like over the last 5 days, I've written like one line, and he was like, you wrote one line. He's like, that's one line more than nothing. So, you know, again, it goes back to that whole thing of like, you know, being able to be kind to yourself and giving yourself the, you know, the generosity of being able to be like, you're doing the work. I mean, like, you know, it's a process. And even sometimes when you're just staring at the page, you're still doing the work. Like you're still sitting there and you're still wrestling with something. And eventually, like something will come out, and that's when it starts up. Jose, what you got?
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what's been said, and or had similar experiences. I think initially when I started writing, I was waiting a lot for the inspiration, the muse. So, and then I would get a piece published every now and then, and I started to feel pressure, like, oh, I have to write something publishable, and this isn't good enough. And it was hard to like draft because it would come out not at the finished state. And then I realized, okay, um, when you're initially writing, just let it out, get the foundation down. It doesn't have to be, you know, perfect, and it can be everyday language and accessible. Fine tune it, and also another thing is that in 2014, I was having trouble getting into like Iowa Review and like Colorado Review and all these like dream publications. And I took two semesters off of grad school, and I just started reading, going to the library, and I read 100 books that year on the Goodreads like app, you know that. Um, and I didn't go out a lot, you know. I rarely went out. Got a lot of my books from the library. I wasn't like spending money at bars and things like that. So I was a minimalist. I kind of knew that I wanted to be a published author, so I set my goal for that, and I made it a priority. So I did the work that was necessary, you know, instead of saying, "Oh, I want to win an award and this and that," but I never read anybody. You know what I mean? Like I had to actually read a lot of the work that was getting written, and a lot of contemporary writers, right? So that year I read those 100 books. Next thing you know, I picked up lineation. You know, at first I wasn't really paying attention to the length of the line break and the stanza and all that. I just wrote just inspiration and getting it on the page and not really even paying attention to how it looked on the page, you know? Um, so after I read those books, I think I subconsciously picked up things like lineation, voice, and sort of saying things, um, and in terms of paying attention to voice and craft, um, and then I started getting published 2015 in some of those magazines. So it took years, like Iowa Review. I think it took me 5 years. Yale Review took me like 8 years. I think 9 years. Poetry Magazine took me 9 years. And so I started to realize it was a marathon, not a sprint. So I guess what I'm saying is that for me, reading, it's like saying I want to play in the NFL, but I don't go lift weights. You know what I mean? Or I don't practice. So I started to realize that the library was like lifting weights for me in terms of the reading was making me stronger, a more um, in terms of language and voice and aesthetics, and so I always say it's also like ballet and boxing, right? You don't want to box, uh, you know, Manny Pacquiao in your first week, right? You know what I mean? Like maybe like in 10 years when I'm ready, you know what I mean? So I think I started to get a little more patient, and initially my publications were like once every 4 months or so, and then it started to be like once every 3 months, and then once every 2 months, and I think it was Kaveh Akbar who was getting published a lot at the time, and I remember thinking like, oh well, he must just write generic stuff that everybody loves for the masses, you know what I mean? And then he put out there, I've been rejected as well, by all the magazines, and we all go through it, years of rejections, and then eventually, you start to build little by little, and then I read his book, and oh, it's beautiful poetry. But so I kind of had to hear it from somebody that they'd also been rejected, even though they were like a famous writer. You know what I mean? And then I started to realize the rejection rates and all that, and it was like my professor told me 1 in 10 submissions that he submitted would get accepted, and there would be 9 rejections. So started to normalize rejection. I started to realize it didn't mean that the work necessarily was bad, and that kind of opened my philosophy in terms of submitting up, so that I wasn't just submitting 5 times and thinking I would get published everywhere. And the last thing I'll say is that lately I've been working a lot with prompts. Initially, I was not intimidated, but I thought prompts were like fake and not inspired, and just manufacturing art. But then I hit writer's block, and I was desperate, right? So I went to my dealer and I said, "Give me a couple prompts." And, so I was more open to try it, right? Now that I was desperate, and I tried it, and I said, "Oh wow, it actually worked," and it feels inspired like my other work. So after that, I actually tried it because I always told myself I would never work with prompts. So a lot of times it's breaking down these ideas that we have, right? I'm never gonna do this. I'm never gonna do that. I'm never gonna teach at a university, and then so eventually I started doing a lot of the things that I feared, facing your fears. Um, so with the prompts, I felt like with my students, it forced me to write because I knew that those 10 minutes, I'm either going to sit there in silence, awkward silence, watching them write, or just try to write. So, like the fact that I had like Adam was saying, when you kind of restrict yourself, it could make you actually write. So I knew that I had that time, and I was either going to sit there in silence or just try it out. And then I realized every time I tried it, I wrote a poem. And then, so I think sometimes facing those fears, breaking down misconceptions, and not thinking everyone's against you. And it's not that I'm not reading enough. It's just everyone's against my voice, or they're oppressing me and this and that. And I started to break that down. I did all the reading, and eventually, little by little, I built it.
So I wanna pose a question to Jimmy. So I think the panelists should ask Jimmy questions, and so this is one of those questions that's like I'm already coming in hot on the question and stuff. But what poem in Zirconium Ash do you feel best represents your relationship to Los Angeles?
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't know. I hope a lot of these poems, speak to Los Angeles. I do think that the opening poem, another freeway poem, in Ars Poetica, written near the 710, more explicitly talks about Los Angeles than some of the other ones, and or maybe not more explicitly, but because it's an Ars Poetica, I really kind of tried to extrapolate, some of the mundane that we've been talking about as poetry and connecting that to Los Angeles. So maybe that one, I'd say that one, but that's also like a long poem. Yeah. So it starts that way. So it is kind of, it was an intentional, I don't know. It was an intentionally long poem at the beginning to kind of set the scene, but you kind of got to get through that one first, Yeah.
What was the first poem you wrote for the collection?
That's a good one. I think it might have been Collapsed Lung. Yeah, maybe that was one of the, I always say that it's one of the first ones in here. That's like one of the old ones for sure. Yeah. That I don't think made it into like my thesis, but ended up coming back into the book. Yeah.
Hey. What do you want to get for dinner?
I don't know. I don't know if anyone has recommendations, but I did see a fuss spot close by.
This is very important too.
Yeah, maybe some sopita. I don't know. But something, hopefully.
Yeah. Jose, do you got a question for Jimmy about the book? Do you got a question for Jimmy about the book?
Yeah, I would say, do you think it was harder for you? I know for me, it was kind of harder to order the book than to write the poems. Was it harder for you, you think, to write the poems or to order it? Or did you have help from that from the editors?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. It actually kind of stayed. Well, I don't know. I mean, I went through so many edits too, because we had like I think they told me they were going to publish it in 2023. So we had like a solid 2 years even before we really started getting into the book. But I don't know. It's hard to tell because the thesis was ordered in one way, included poems that are not in here, and vice versa or whatever. But when I kind of turned it in for like one of the final drafts, one of the initial drafts that we were really going to start working on, it was laid out, I think in a solid order, and the editor definitely helped me out to kind of shift some things around and had recommendations. But I think because it kind of started off as a thesis, the order was kind of in a natural spot. It like had a nice foundation, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. I was going to say also, if you had to give like writers going through a similar experience of putting together a collection, would you have any advice for them?
Hang on, strap in, buckle up. It's I don't know. It's a lot of work, as a lot of and kind of even I'm still thinking about that idea, the question that we were talking about earlier. Like, what do you write? What do you put out there in the world? What do you share in a reading? And so as I was writing this book, I felt like I kind of had to be back in that headspace. And that was one of the hardest things for me is kind of dealing with my day-to-day life and then coming home and really trying to like figure out, am I really going to put this out there? Or is this one not going to be out there? So yeah, be patient with yourself. Trust the process. Definitely trust the process. And I think we've been also saying a lot about intuition today, and I think that's very true. And I think more than intuition, it connects us back to like what the poem is or poetry, because that intuition is maybe for me oftentimes it's a musicality. An intuition of following the poem and the line in a very like musical way. But you can apply it like when you're working on the book, it's just kind of trusting the process, hopefully, trusting your editor and the press to kind of lead you in like a, towards a good path that you want to kind of be proud at the end to kind of hold the physical object. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that idea as well of like trusting the process. And I think when I was going through it, I felt very um, like panicked about it and it wasn't going to work out and this and that. And looking back, I feel like everything kind of worked out. And I'm also even glad that it took like several years because I feel the earlier drafts were not really ready. Now looking back on it, you know, so that's just something that I kind of experienced.
So, so I have an idea. So do y'all does anybody watch Subway Takes? No? Anybody? Jose, do you know what Subway Takes is?
I don't think so now.
Yeah. So they're like, "What's your take?" And then like you kind of like you like hot take stuff. Okay.
Oh yeah, I heard of that.
Okay. So I wanna do poetry takes. So I'll start just because I'm the one that's initiating this conversation. So, but this one is I feel like most people are gonna be in agreement with this. So my take is that poets should be given all the six-figure advances and should be given like more due like from publishing companies than novelists. And this is because how often do you hear like people will pull out like lines from novels occasionally, right? But how often do you hear during like life events, like like if you're like you find someone that's like in a really difficult spot or whatever and stuff, they will reach for poetry, and poetry is often the thing that will kind of like be like that that grounding thing, that kind of like that lightning strike thing. So that's my poetry take. So oh yeah, no, it popped up in my head. So yeah, all right, Genesis.
My poetry take as a poet and as a bookseller is, and because I be on book threads, and every now and then I'm like, ooh, the booksellers are fighting the independent artists today. But I will say, as a poet, but also as a bookseller, if you're going to show up to a bookstore or to an event or be like, you should carry my shit, please, for the love of God, research the people that you're approaching. That's my poetry take, is people will come in all the time to Beyond Baroque, and we're a poetry institution, and they'll go, hey, are you going to carry my coming of age Western romance? Not, maybe not, but if you have a collection of experimental poetry exploring love through the lens of all of the languages that you speak as a polyglot, fuck, maybe, but like do the research. There are plenty of really awesome independent booksellers and a lot of really wonderful niche places that have their like little thing that they love to carry. Find them, be in community with them, show up for them, and that's how you're going to find the places that your book is going to do well, that your book is accepted, and that your events and your voice gets to be heard. Stop, for lack of a better word, stop raw dogging it. Please stop raw dogging it. Google it, maybe go to an event. Maybe come in on an off day, introduce yourself to the bookseller, and just browse. That's my poetry take. It's just maybe take a quick look at what you're asking people to do before you start coming in with like a list of demands from booksellers.
Yeah. Oh man, poetry hot take. I don't know. I'm gonna kind of cop out, I think, and I'm gonna say that my poetry hot take is that all poets should read 2 poems a day. Because I that's what I strive to do, and that's like a way to maybe not get caught in the writer's block or just to read someone else's work. I mean, I always try to read, like I said, at least 2 poems a day that I haven't read before. If I'm rereading something, that's great too. But that I'll say that's my hot take.
My hot take is to buy Jimmy Vega's book. And if you don't, we're going to come get you. I'm serious. That's it. Good night.
All right.
Thank you, Matt. Oh, Jose,
Hot take.
hot take. Sign us
I guess
off.
I would say my poetry hot take is to take a risk. Life is a risk, carnal. Take a risk, push boundaries. And sometimes, I used to say I will never write sonnets or I will never write couplets. Now I'm obsessed with it, So sometimes what we fear, we will become, So don't be so quick to judge and try to lean in on your own happiness and your own fulfillment, because even in this poetry game, if you get published in Yale Review, tomorrow you'll want to get in Harvard Review. You know what I mean? So you'll never be happy no matter what. You get one book published, then you want the next one. You know what I mean? So try to stay in the moment and also lean on gratitude and generosity. And the people who are nice to you, cherish them, because that truly is like one of the most important things is the people who are nice to you and that you vibe with. Hold on to them. Try not to burn all your bridges. Sometimes you fucking have to, right? Sometimes you have to do it, but sometimes generosity and kindness can go a long way.
Thanks, Jose.
Thank you. It was my pleasure. Good
Absolutely.
night, everybody. Take care. Drive safely. Hope to see you around.
Thank you for joining
Congratulations,
us.
Jimmy.
Thank you, Jose. Miss you.
Go
Take
get it.
care.
Go get a copy.
Thank you.
That's trippy. Okay.
Got it. So, what was cool about the whole Zoom thing up in the corner? When you were looking at the TV, on the screen, you were looking at him too. Like,
That's cool. Yeah.
That was a cool
that was
setup.
cool. I didn't think that far ahead, but it worked out. It's one of those,
Love that. I love that.
And what's cool is that, Jose kind of talked about, he said, let the poem go. Or that's how I took it. And just like how we went today was let it go. You have an idea, you have this grand plan of life, of the poem, of whatever it is. Just let it happen. Because it'll happen the way it happens, and then you take it. And that's, I think, where the poetry really comes in, is we are taking it. And I kind of have this theory on education, which, I don't talk about often. I probably shouldn't, because people are assholes. They're going to steal it. But my big theory on education is that, learning is violent. It's violence. And that a lot of people think that the knowledge in my brain is transferred into your brain. That's not true. Right? You don't sit there and you don't take the knowledge. You have to stand up. You have to take the knowledge from the person who has the knowledge. You have to take it through dialogue, through conversations, through questions, through what we just did right here. There are people at some point in the world that are gonna go like, oh, who the fuck is that? Jimmy. Oh wait, back in the fucking day. What the? Before his beard was gray? Oh my gosh. He was on this thing here, and they were gonna go and they're gonna ask the question, who was this person before they were a person? Who are they? What are they? Where are they? We have to ask, we have to take what exists. We have to take the knowledge, ask the questions, and so on. And so this is why it's so awesome that the conversation is doing, like, I swear, it's so hard to have conversations with people where they they go and go and go. And I was like, yes, do it. Keep talking. But before we close out and everybody here, we have snacks, and Barba said he's going to order pizza for everybody. So if you're hungry, that's what's going to happen. Right? Yeah. Oh, look, he's right there. That's we could it doesn't matter. We could do that. But does anybody here, before I say my closing remarks, does anybody have anything last or final they want to say?
Just thank you, Matt. Thank you for having us. Thank you for opening up the space. This is a really awesome space you have.
Thank you. I I spent a lot of work on it. I fixed the holes in the walls. I did all the other stuff. Just saying. If anybody's watching or anybody here, if you've ever wanted to learn how to fix a hole in a wall, I can teach you how to fix a hole in a wall. It's real easy. Now, I'm going to yell at you.
Oh, no.
Right? If I've ever taught anyone how to make a book before, anybody? I'm going to yell at you. But you'll be able to do it. So, one of the biggest messages I have out of today's event is voice. I wrote it in blue. Right? Blue right there. Voice, there it is. Awesome. And that all of our voices are important enough to share. All of our voices carry the strength and the power of those who had spoken or not spoken before us. All of our voices are the voices of those who had lived and have died so that we can live and that we can die. And I hope that all of us remember all of it. So please get a copy of Zirconium Ash everywhere. Now, I have a signed copy that has my name on it. Wink, wink, hint, hint, nudge, nudge. That ain't nobody's ever going to get because it says, hey, what's up, Matt? You are the coolest person ever, in quotes, right? Yeah, right, Jimmy? Yeah. Get your copy. Read the words. Listen to the music in it. That's what poetry is. Poetry and art and everything is music. We have music in our blood, in our bones, in our minds, in our souls. We need to live it. We need to get it out there in the future and forever. So please, everybody, join us always. Connect with us. I hate doing this stuff, but I have to because otherwise these kinds of events don't happen. If I don't have Jimmy here, we have nobody. And it's just me. And it's just me building games. Oh, by the way, this is just for everybody here. I made a game. So you play it because it's awesome. I'll show you. It's really cool. And I don't have to hide it anymore because apparently the App Store and the Google Store are kind of jerks. And even if you put developer name, they list your real name. So I can't hide anyway. So we'll all play. It's awesome. But anyways, Nervous Ghost Press, do all the cool stuff. Have events. Jimmy's going to be here all the time because now he's been here and it's awesome and he knows it. And it's one of those moments where in your life you just kind of ask you don't ask yourself. You tell yourself, you walk home and you go, damn, I ain't ever lived until today. Now I'm living. And so everybody, I wish you a happy end of the year. A happy 2025. 2026 is going to be fantastic. Yes. We'll see you later. And I hope you always remember our voices are strong. They carry strength. They are who we are. And we will see you next time.
Woo. Do you take that noise out?
Huh?
Do you take that noise out?
Yeah.